Chapter 1366. Old Mrs. Shun patted Lily up and down. Her smile deepened as she said, "You finally put on some weight. Wow, you're so pretty. This child is blessed." As she spoke, old Mrs. Shun noticed the two men behind Lily. When she saw Ming, it was fine. When she saw Wen Fenglin, she snorted and said, "You're lucky, you brat. You actually got such a good deal. Oh, I like Lily so much. If only Lily was our granddaughter." When Lily heard that, she held onto old Mrs. Shun's arm and blinked. "Am I not now?" Old Mrs. Shun's face lit up. Yes. Let's go. Grandma will take you to dinner. Are you hungry?" "Yeah, I'm hungry. The airplane food sucks." Lily held onto old Mrs. Shun's arm and smiled sweetly. She turned around and waved at the two men behind her. "Daddy-o, hurry up. Hey, your daddy has a name, but when it comes to your husband it becomes O. Can't you be a little more fair?" Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He still pulled the suitcase and followed behind them. Slow down. Slow down? I haven't even said anything. Come on, Julia is waiting outside." Old Mrs. Shun patted Lily's hand and whispered, "Come sleep at my place tonight. Spend the night with me." Lily chuckled and agreed happily. "Sure." Old Mrs. Shun was delighted. She held onto Lily's arm even more affectionately. "Come on, Grandma will take you to eat roast duck." Julia's car was huge. It was a 6-seater Lincoln stretch limousine. After they got into the car, old Mrs. Shun pulled Lily to the back and told her about the recent happenings. Ming had just finished putting his luggage in and was about to sit beside Wen Fenglin when he heard the person in front say, "Ming, you sit in front." Julia glanced at the rearview mirror and said casually, "I have something to talk to you about." Ming raised his eyebrows and smiled. It seemed like he had come with ill intentions. But Ming had no reason to be afraid. He slammed the door and sat in the passenger seat. Julia started the car and asked, "When is the wedding?" "Soon, at the end of the month." Ming glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. He felt a sense of superiority as a victor. "I think I sent you an invitation. Didn't you receive it?" The relaxed expression on Julia's face faded as he replied, "I didn't see it. I threw it away. Oh, we're planning to have a child. But my wife's health isn't very good, so I brought her to the capital to relax. I heard that there's a temple here in the capital that's very efficacious. So I came to take a look and climb the mountain to pray. My wife has been talking about you recently. She said that you're a really good person. She's very happy to be friends with you." Ming said with a smile as if it was no big deal. It sounded like he was praising Julia, but every single word he said was asking for a beating. Julia pursed his lips and tightened his masseter muscles. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was a mistake to let him sit here. Even when this guy wasn't blind, he was still asking for a beating. Is that so? Congratulations. Chapter 1367. It's nothing. I just don't want you to sit with your father-in-law. Julia's voice wasn't loud. As he spoke, he raised his eyebrows provocatively at Ming. Ming chuckled. "Why are you so annoying? Compared to you, I'm nothing." Julia drove to a famous roast duck restaurant in the capital. After letting them in first, Julia parked the car and followed them in. Wen Fenglin and old Mrs. Shun hadn't seen each other in a long time. The moment they met, they started talking about Wen Fenglin's younger days. When Wen was young, his looks were impeccable. When he stood with Xian they were a perfect match. Lily listened with great interest as she ate. She nodded her head from time to time. Her vague impression of her mother was starting to clear up. After dinner, Ming subconsciously wanted to take Lily to find a hotel. Who knew that Lily and old Mrs. Shun would end up staying at the Shun residence together? The Shun residence was huge, and there were many guest rooms. Old Mrs. Shun pulled Lily to her room and announced where she would be staying that night. Ming, on the other hand, carried his luggage to the room that the servant had prepared for him and settled down. Wen Fenglin was at ease. When he saw his daughter and son-in-law behaving like that, he smiled happily. After confirming where they would be staying, Lily wasn't in a hurry to sleep. Old Mrs. Shun happily led her around. They walked to the square that old Mrs. Shun frequented. There were many people around old Mrs. Shun's age playing music. The crowd had dispersed, and the old ladies were sitting around chatting. Grandma, do you do square dancing as well? Eulily was a little surprised. Old Mrs. Shun replied proudly. You'll know when you see it. As she spoke, she walked over to the group of old ladies and waved her hand. Sisters, I've brought my adopted granddaughter to see you. Eulily couldn't help but smile when she saw old Mrs. Shun's expression. She walked over and greeted them obediently. Hello, grannies. My name is Lily. Oh, you're Lily? Old Mrs. Shun keeps mentioning you. You look so pretty. Are you from the south? You're so pretty. Hey, do you have a boyfriend? I have a grandson at home, and he's very handsome. Go away. How can your grandson be called handsome? Our son is the handsome one. Lily, do you want to have tea with Grandma and get to know each other? The old ladies were all very enthusiastic. Eulily's smile widened as she said, I'm already married. My husband has also come to the capital. Wow, you're getting married at such a young age. Are you 22? Aya, you young people are so impatient. Do you have children now? When are you planning to have children? Eulily was embarrassed. Are these questions that a stranger should ask? Old Mrs. Shun was a little displeased and said, Shoo, shoo, shoo. I brought my dear granddaughter here to watch us dance. As she spoke, she looked at Lily and continued, Don't underestimate us old folks just because we're old. We're very nimble. Come on, let's dance for you to see. Great. Eulily clapped her hands in support of him. Old Mrs. Shun turned on the music. The old ladies were very proud of their dance moves. They quickly lined up. Chapter 1368. The old ladies were all wearing elegant spring dresses. The embroidery, muslin and satin on them were all very Chinese. As the music started, the old ladies' movements began to sway. Their movements were soft and beautiful. They looked gentle, but they were firm and resilient. The 7 or 8 old ladies stood together and began to move in unison. It was very different from the square dances that Eulily had seen before. How is this square dance? This is Chinese classical dance. The old ladies' movements weren't as gentle, but they were still very graceful. The night wind blew gently. The trees on both sides swayed gently and rustled. The wind lifted the elegant clothes of the old ladies. It was a beautiful sight. There were many onlookers. When they saw the old ladies dance, many of them picked up their phones to take videos. When the dance was over, applause rang out like raindrops. Eulily was also amazed. She applauded sincerely. It's so beautiful. I didn't know Grandma was so amazing. Old Mrs. Shun was elated by the praise and replied, Of course. Why else do you think Grandma's health is so good? Humph. No wonder Grandma is not only in good health, but she also looks beautiful. Eulily held old Mrs. Shun's arm and giggled. Old Mrs. Shun was overjoyed. You're such a sweet talker. Yeah, Grandma, let's go home. Eulily looked at the time and said, It's already 9 o'clock. You should go back to sleep. Why are you sleeping so early? Come. Grandma will take you to eat skewers. Puffed. Eulily almost choked. Grandma, that's not good for your health. You should eat less. Hey, are you looking down on me? No, I just feel that you should continue to maintain your beauty. Eating this junk food will hinder your beauty. Old Mrs. Shun deliberately kept a straight face, but she couldn't help but laugh. All right. I'm going back. I'm leaving. You guys enjoy yourselves. The surrounding old ladies waved at old Mrs. Shun and said, Come over early tomorrow night. We'll teach your granddaughter how to dance. Okay. Eulily waved at them. Goodbye, Grandma. The square wasn't far from the Shun residence, so they arrived quickly. Eulily held old Mrs. Shun's arm as they walked in. The first person she saw in the living room was Shun Jilia, followed by Shun Jilia's brother, Shun Luoan. At the same time, Shun Luoan's gaze was also directed at her. It was like a sharp X-ray, suddenly attacking her. Eulily was shocked. Grandma, you're back. Although he was speaking to old Mrs. Shun, his eyes were fixed on Eulily. Is this Uncle Wen's daughter, Wen Lily? Old Mrs. Shun's eyes were fixed on Eulily. Aha! Old Mrs. Shun looked at him as if he already knew the answer and said, They will be staying at home for the next few days. You should stay at your villa. Shun Luoan smiled when he heard that. There are guests at home, so of course I have to accompany them. How can I stay in the villa? By the way, Manting is back today. She paused, and her eyes fell on Shin Luo An's face. Yulili didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that Shin Luo An's expression was somewhat sinister. Shin Luo An was not kind to her. In other words, it was as if he did not welcome her presence. Chapter 1369. Shin Luo An's words had a deeper meaning. As he spoke, he looked at Yulili, but he quickly looked away. When old Mrs. Shin heard Shin Luo An's words, she became unhappy and said, "Lily and Oming are my guests." "I know," Shin Luo An replied nonchalantly. He stood up and said, "Rest early, Grandma. It's getting late." As Shin Luo An spoke, he walked inside. Old Mrs. Shin huffed and held onto Yulili's arm. "Don't mind him. He's always been weird. It's been a few years, but he hasn't changed. Sigh. It's all that woman's fault." Yulili seemed to have heard the main point. She looked at old Mrs. Shun and asked, "Who? Who else could it be?" "It's," old Mrs. Shun said. She quickly stopped and said, "Sigh, this is a family matter. If you know, it will only add to your troubles. Lily, do you want to take a shower first?" Old Mrs. Shun didn't want to talk about it, so Yulili didn't press her further. When she heard old Mrs. Shun change the subject, she nodded her head and asked, "Where is Oming's room? I'll go there to take a shower." "All right, go ahead. Remember to look for me when you're done." Old Mrs. Shun led her to the room that had been arranged for Oming and reluctantly walked away. Yulili knocked on the door to indicate that she was going in. She turned the knob. The knob turned, but it didn't budge. The door was locked from the inside. Yulili knocked on the door and called out, "Honey, are you inside? Open the door." There was no response. Just as Yulili took out her phone and was about to call Oming, she heard the door open. It was dark inside. The lights weren't on. Shin Luo An's face quickly appeared behind the door. He looked at Yulili with interest. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "Miss Wen, are you looking for me?" Yulili was stunned and instinctively took a step back. She didn't know why, but every time she saw Shin Luo An, she felt an inexplicable sense of danger. Yulili wasn't in a hurry to leave. She looked into the darkness and asked, "Isn't this the room arranged for Oming? Where is Oming?" Shin Luo An seemed to laugh. He said softly, "I don't know if Oming was inside or not, but I'm inside now. If you want to come in, I don't mind." These words were said slowly and frivolously. Yulili frowned in disgust, but she still said politely, "I'm sorry. Maybe I got the wrong room. I'll leave now." "Do you need me to take you, Miss Wen?" "No." Yulili's voice was a little shrill, and the disgust in her heart increased. Very quickly, Yulili realized that she had overreacted. She said, "I'll look for it myself. Thank you, Mr. Shun." As she spoke, Yulili quickened her pace. She looked like she was about to flee. Shin Luo An looked at Yulili's back and chuckled. His eyes were filled with malice. Shin Luo An closed the door and turned to walk inside. He asked the darkness in front of him, "Am I that scary? Oming's wife seems to be afraid of me, and so are you." Chapter 1370. Shin Luo An stepped forward. He looked a little sad. He walked around the king-sized bed and pulled Shin Manting over with his big hands that smelled of disinfectant. Shin Manting bit her lower lip. She didn't speak or make a sound. She closed her eyes and looked like she had accepted her fate. "I was wondering why you came to this empty room dressed like this. So this is Oming's room?" He grabbed her arm with one hand and slowly slid down her face with the other. His fingertips moved from her cheeks to her neck, and then to her proud snow-white peaks. Shin Luo An's face was slowly dyed with lust. At the same time, his malevolence deepened. Shin Manting was only wearing a long lace dress. Although the room was very dark, the view in front of her was not covered by the darkness. It was beautiful. Shin Luo An had never seen Shin Manting dressed like this. But Shin Manting's attire today wasn't for him to see. He is already married. Why are you seducing him? If you have such thoughts, you might as well think about how to please me. Do you think that I will let you go if you seduce Oming? Huh. Shin Luo An gritted his teeth. Unless you die, otherwise, don't even think about escaping. Shin Manting's mouth was covered and tears flowed down. She should be in pain, and she should be resisting, but she shamefully felt happy. After a long time, everything calmed down. Shin Manting was still pressed down, but her mouth had been released. She laughed sarcastically. You don't like people touching your things. What about your wife? Have you touched them yourself? Shen Luoan's body had not yet been pulled away. When he heard this, he propped himself up slightly and looked at her. What do you mean? Do you know that Yi Yu has a man outside? When Shen Luoan heard that, he immediately thought of the man he saw next to Yi Yu's apartment last time. That man's relationship with Yi Yu was indeed a little different. But that was only if Yi Yu was willing to accept it. Yi Yu had been stubborn since she was a child. She would not easily let go of what she had set her mind on. Since she was married to him, she would be honest. He knew Yi Yu as well as he knew Shen Manting. You want to distract me? Can't you find a better reason? Haha. Do you think that Yi Yu is dead set on you? Shen Manting sounded very disdainful. In fact, do you know how many men she has had? Do you know how good Qin Jiufan is to her now? The most popular male star? What kind of reason do you think a man would treat a woman well? Qin Jiufan was currently in the limelight because he was the male lead of the Lonely Swordsman. The man was indeed good-looking. But would Yi Yu fall for him? Shen Luoan chuckled. What are you suspecting? You think there's something going on between them? How do you think she got the second female lead in such a popular TV series? With her previous fame, it's impossible for her to get that kind of role. Isn't that enough to explain the problem? Shen Luoan opened his eyes and stared at Shen Manting. The boss of NC Entertainment, Li Xiqing's brother, someone saw them coming out of the hotel room. With Shen Manting's words, Shen Luoan remembered the scene he had seen in the hospital. The way Li Jinan treated Yi Yu was indeed different. Could it be that Shen Luoan gritted his teeth and propped himself up? He flipped the person under him over and entered her mercilessly with great force. Shen Manting clenched her teeth. Their voices were almost inaudible in the room. All that was left was the sound of him gritting his teeth and growling. Please, be gentle, don't. Shen Luoan seemed to have heard nothing. After releasing her, he threw her to the side and stood up. Shen Manting was finally released. She heard the sound of a metal belt buckle behind her. Then, she heard the door being opened and slammed. Chapter 1371. Finally, he's gone. But with Shen Luoan gone, Shen Manting's heart became even emptier. In the darkness, the smell of decay filled her nose. Shen Manting lay on the soft bed, and tears flowed silently from the corner of her eyes. I'll go find Yi Yu. I've had enough of this kind of life. Yu Lily's footsteps were hurried. When she turned around and saw that Shen Luo and had already returned to his room, she breathed a sigh of relief. She picked up the phone and called Ming. The call was quickly answered. Ming sounded energetic. Obviously, he hadn't slept yet. Hubby, where are you? Ming was very quiet on the other end. Soon his magnetic voice was heard. I'm at the office. You can sleep with Granny Shen tonight. I'll sleep in the office. Yu Lily was still in shock. When she heard Ming's voice, she felt wronged. Why didn't you tell me? I just went to knock on the door, and it was Shen Luoan who opened it. It scared me to death. Well, didn't you go to play with Granny Shen? I didn't want to spoil your fun. After all, Shen Manting used to be my fiancé. I didn't think it was good for us to live under the same roof. So I came to the office to work overtime. Ming rarely explained in this way. After he said it, even he felt that he had said too much. Let's go hiking tomorrow. Well, Yu Lily pouted and said, then come and pick me up tomorrow. Okay. Ming chuckled. Go to sleep. It's getting late. I still have some work to do, so I can't talk to you anymore. Sleep early. Don't stay up too late. Yes, my dear wife. Hearing Ming's relaxed and cheerful tone, Yu Lily's originally nervous mood suddenly relaxed. She called out, hubby. Huh. Good night. Okay. The next day, Ming came early. He drove an Audi A8 with the capital license plate. It was 8 o'clock in the morning when he arrived at the Shen residence. Yu Lily had just woken up when she received a call from Ming. She quickly took the time to wash up. By the time she was done, half an hour had passed. When she went out, Ming was sitting in the dining room eating breakfast. When he saw Yu Lily come out, his originally expressionless face softened, and he waved at her. Yu Lily quickly walked toward him and looked at the breakfast dishes. There were steamed buns and side dishes, as well as dry noodles and millet porridge. Lily was a typical southerner. She had no appetite when she saw the food. It's all right. Ming handed over the steamed bun that he had taken a bite of. Want some? Lily turned her head away with a look of disgust. The servant quickly asked, Miss Wen, what would you like to eat? You of. I'll have the millet porridge, thank you, Lily said. She turned around and asked, Where's my father? Wen went. And Mr. Xiao. The Ming Shen, the servant said of one. The servant said while scooping porridge, Our young master will be back soon. He will be your tour guide. Where do you want to go? Wait for our young master to come back, and then go together. Lily nudged Ming and said, Why don't we go by ourselves? It's not good to have Shenjilia be our tour guide. Chapter 1372. That was what Ming was thinking. Let Shenjilia go with them? It would be better for them to explore on their own. However, they still had to eat breakfast. Let's eat first. There's nothing we can do if we run into them. Lily took the millet porridge from the servant and took a sip. It's so hot. Drink slowly. There's no hurry. Ming took her bowl and handed her a napkin. Lily agreed, but she continued to eat the porridge. Just as Lily was halfway through her meal, the sound of high heels came from inside. Shen Manting came out. She had delicate makeup on her face and was wearing the latest spring dress of a famous brand. The beautiful pink dress accentuated Shen Manting's figure, especially the silk scarf around her neck. It looked very tasteful. When Shen Manting saw Ming, her eyes darkened. When she saw Lily, her expression didn't change. When Lily saw Shen Manting, her eyes subconsciously fell on the scarf. Then, she lowered her head and ate the porridge. Shen Manting washed her hands and walked to the dining table. She picked up a steamed bun and ate it slowly. From beginning to end, she didn't say hello to Ming and his wife. It was as if they didn't exist. After Lily finished the porridge, she pulled Ming's sleeve and said, Honey, let's go first. Honey. When Shen Manting heard the way he addressed her, she froze for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. Ming noticed the slight change in Shen Manting. He already knew what Lily was thinking, but he was very cooperative and said, Well, okay. When the couple walked out, Lily breathed a sigh of relief and said, It's so embarrassing. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have listened to Grandma and lived here. I don't like anyone here. Shen Manting did, and so did Shen Luoan. But Shen Jilia didn't live here. Fortunately, Shen Longyue and his wife were traveling around the world, and not in the capital. Otherwise, it would have been even more embarrassing. Ming looked at her softly and asked, Are you full? No. Lily touched her belly and smacked her lips. Let's go buy something else to eat. The millet porridge is tasteless. Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't you know how to pair it with a side dish? The side dishes aren't that good either. I want to eat fruit pancakes. Let's go, I know a stall nearby that sells delicious pancakes. I'll bring you there. Lily held onto Ming's arm in high spirits, but she quickly thought of something and said, I have to send a message to Shen Jilia to tell him that he doesn't have to come and be our tour guide anymore. Hey, there's a message from Shen Jilia. Shen Jilia had already sent them a message 10 minutes ago. The hospital is a little busy today, so I can't leave. You guys have fun. I'll bring you guys out to play at night. When Lily saw the message, she felt relieved and said, That's great. Let's go. We'll go by ourselves. She excitedly pulled Ming and ran. But after a few steps, she vaguely felt as if someone was watching them from behind. He turned around and saw Shen Manting standing at the door, staring at them. Lily didn't know why, but she felt a little scared. An uncomfortable feeling immediately seeped out from the bottom of her heart, and her hair stood on end. Chapter 1373. Lily quickly took Ming to the stall she used to go to. After buying something, Ming looked a little strange. With one look, Lily knew that he was complaining that the stall was dirty. She stuffed the thing into his mouth and said, It's okay. I won't die. Ming took the thing and took a bite. How is it? Lily looked at him expectantly, her eyes shining. Ming nodded his head. Not bad. I think so. I think it's delicious. Sigh. It's a pity that everything in the capital is congested. Even the subway is crowded. Otherwise, we could try taking the subway in the capital, Lily said. Let's go. We can eat in the car. The couple looked at each other and smiled. They drove together in the direction of Hongluo Temple. The purpose of their visit was clear: to pray for a child. Naturally, the route was very straight. It was a weekday, so the road wasn't congested, but it still took more than an hour to get there. After parking the car, Lily pulled Oming inside. Many young couples came and went, and there were also many old people and tourists coming and going. As one of the famous attractions in the capital, even on a weekday, there were many people. Lily pulled Oming along to pay his respects, and they quickly made their way inside. It was May, and the wisteria flowers were in full bloom. The fragrance of the flowers filled the air, and the tourists coming and going were all taking photos with their phones. Lily saw that they were very happy taking photos, so she picked up her phone and took a few photos. Oming looked at the photos she took and couldn't bear to look at them, so he looked away. This technique, Lily saw Oming's expression and was a little unhappy. She pulled him over and said, "Take a few photos." Oming suddenly entered the picture and looked at the beauty effect on the phone screen. He frowned and asked, "Why is it so pink?" "A straight man like you won't understand. Come on, smile." Oming's lips twitched, and Lily took a photo. Oming and Lily were both good-looking, especially photogenic. After taking the photo, Lily looked left and right and said, "It's really beautiful. They're a perfect match. Hey, hubby, if I post this on WeChat, will people be envious of me?" He knew that Lily didn't like to post on WeChat, but occasionally, he would inadvertently glance at her WeChat moments. There were a lot of likes and comments. Hearing this, Oming thought for a moment and said, "I think so. I'm going to post it." Lily posted the photo she had just taken and edited the caption, "A day trip with my husband to Hongluo Temple." As soon as Lily posted it, someone immediately liked it. Lily was proud of herself and said, "Look, I'm so popular." Lily clicked on her profile picture and glanced at her circle of friends. The latest one was last year. An exquisite French meal, a selfie with short hair, and a bright smile. The script was also very simple. A new hairstyle, a rare feast, I'm so happy. This was what she had posted on her WeChat moments last year, when she was preparing to commit suicide. It had never been updated. Lily's heart was pounding, but she soon relaxed and smiled. At that time, how could she have imagined that she would marry Oming? Now she had found her father and had her own family. Chapter 1374. Lily's heart warmed a little. She sent the photo she had just taken to Oming's WeChat, then patted him gently and said, "Give me your phone." Oming was a little surprised. She never looked at his phone. Is she going to check on me? Oming smiled and handed the phone to her. Do you want to catch us in the act? Lily took it, rolled her eyes and said, "Catch you?" She downloaded the photo and clicked on Oming's WeChat moments. Oming didn't like to post anything. The latest post in his WeChat moments was, "Happy New Year." Before that was last year's Happy New Year. Before that was last year's Happy New Year. Lily was speechless and said, "Hundreds of people liked and replied to such a boring post. The boss is really different." Oming chuckled and hugged her. He looked down at the phone in her hand and asked, "What do you want to do?" Lily sent the photo out and edited it in front of Oming. "A day trip with my wife to Hongluo Temple." Oming let her do what she wanted. He looked at the map and said, "Let's go to the mountain. I heard that the guanyin on the mountain is more efficacious." "Didn't you say you didn't believe in that?" "Well, I'll believe it if you believe it." Oming hugged her and walked forward. Lily was a little excited as she looked at the new messages coming from Oming's phone. "Look, they are praising me. Chairman Wang. Handsome man and beautiful woman. KW Lu. It's rare to see Oming's selfie. Is it from sister-in-law? IO Technology Miss Guan. It's so beautiful. I'm having fun." Lily was very happy. She quickly put the phone away and followed Oming up Guanyin Road with a smile. Step by step, Lily was soon exhausted. She sat on the ground and panted. "No, I can't walk anymore. I'll carry you. Come up." "No." Lily refused without thinking. Lily refused without a second thought. Your hand has finally recovered. If I press on it again, would I still be considered a human? Shall I carry you? No, I'll rest for a while. Lily sat on the steps, panting, and her mind was full of thoughts. She asked, "Oh Ming, do you have any special regrets?" "Yes, there is." "What is it?" "I'll tell you when we get to the top. I heard that there's a very tall tower up there. Making wishes there is very efficacious." "Oh." Lily was still unwilling to get up. "Give me a pull." "I can't get up." Ming smiled and scooped her up. He said, "You're so weak. How about we climb the Great Wall tomorrow to train?" "I'm not going." Lily refused without a second thought. She dragged herself up the stairs. At the peak, the wind was very strong. A strong gust of wind blew on his body, sending a chill down his spine. Lily hugged Ming and shivered in the cold. She asked, "Tell me quickly." "Make a wish first." Ming didn't forget his purpose of coming here. Lily was unwilling to let go of Ming. She shouted down the mountain, "I want a child. I want to have a baby, to have a child children." Lily shouted again, "Ming, I want to bear your child." Ming hugged her and chuckled. "You've scared Guanyin away by shouting like that. It's your turn. Hurry up and shout." Lily urged. "Guanyin won't wait for you. Hurry up and tell her." "Yes." Ming hugged her and shouted, "I want to be with you, Lily, forever." After shouting, he hugged Lily and didn't say another word. Lily was anxious and said, "What about the child? Tell her that we want a child." Chapter 1375. What about children? It doesn't matter. As long as we are together. Are you afraid that we won't have children? Lily became even more anxious and said, "How can I not be afraid?" Ming stopped her from speaking. "Do you want to hear what my regret is?" "I want to, but you have to call for our child first," Lily pleaded. "If you don't call for him, what if he doesn't listen to me and doesn't come?" "All right, how should I shout?" "That's right. Children of Ming and Lily, come here quickly. Daddy and Mommy need you. Daddy loves you. No matter what I did wrong in the past, I know I was wrong. I beg you to come back quickly." Lily's heart ached, and she said, "They won't come back even if you call for them like that. If I'm really pregnant, it can't be twins. This is my greatest regret. My greatest regret is that my twin boys didn't have the chance to be born." Lily felt a lump in her throat, and her eyes immediately turned red. "Are you cold? Let's go." "Yeah." Lily held his arm, wiped her eyes and nodded. When Lily and Ming returned to the Shun residence, it was already very late. Old Mrs. Shun was drinking tea and chatting with Wen Fenglin and the others. When they returned, Wen Fenglin waved at Lily and said, "Come here. Daddy wants to discuss something with you." Lily blinked her eyes and quickly sat down beside Wen Fenglin. "Ming, come over here too." Wen Fenglin beckoned him over. Ming and Lily were equally surprised. It wasn't often that Wen Fenglin addressed them so seriously. "Dad, what's wrong?" Ming sat down on the sofa and looked at Wen Fenglin with confusion. Old Mrs. Shun smiled and said, "Aren't you guys going to have your wedding soon? I heard from your father that it's on the 9th of next month. It's already the end of the month, and the 9th happens to be the 18th day. According to the customs of the Huaxia Empire, a man and a woman are not allowed to see each other for half a month before their wedding. For the next 10 days, Lily can stay in the capital. Anyway, you finished your business for the day." When Fenglin was of the same mind, he nodded his head and said, "I'll hang out with Lily in the capital for the time being. Ming, you can also go back and prepare for the wedding. The timing is just right." "No, I don't think it's a good idea." Lily and Ming spoke at the same time. Both of them had the same meaning. Old Mrs. Shun took Lily's hand in rebuke and said, "There's a reason why our ancestors passed down this custom. The son and daughter-in-law of the Zhang family next door don't believe in this. They're quarreling every day. Not too long ago, they even lost their child. You can't ignore this nonsense. Furthermore, the two of you have been together for so long. It's good for you to be apart for a while. Don't you agree, Wen?" "Auntie Shun is right. Lily, listen to Daddy and Grandma. Daddy and Grandma will not harm you." However, Ming was very determined and said, "No way." Chapter 1376. Yu Lily had heard of this custom, but she had never imagined that her father and Granny Shun would put it into practice. I won't be able to see Ming for more than 10 days straight? Yu Lily was a little reluctant. How am I going to get through so many days? What era are we in? Do you still believe in such things? Ming's attitude was very firm. No way. I'm going back. And my wife is going back with me. The wedding is just a formality. Our relationship as husband and wife is very good. At the same time, Yu Lily was thinking the same thing. She nodded her head and said, Granny, this is an old saying. Which young person still believes in such things? Furthermore, half a month is too long. It's not that long. When old Shun and I first got married, he was out doing business every day. We were often apart for a year and a half at a time. Don't talk about how long it's been. You've only been apart for half a month. Besides, there's a saying that absence makes the heart grow fonder. Your relationship will only get better in the future. Lily, listen to Grandma, Wen Fenglin said. During this period of time, Daddy will accompany you to have some fun in the capital. Isn't Ming's company very busy recently? Ming's father has been very busy lately. It's time for you to go back and share some of the burden with your father. When Yu Lily heard that, she fell silent. Indeed, Ming had been spending less time at the company recently. Most of the time he had been accompanying her. Although Ming's mother hadn't said it out loud, she was definitely unhappy about it. What was the point of spending all day with a woman, instead of managing such a big company? When Ming saw that she seemed to be wavering, he became even more displeased and said, Yu Lily looked at him and said, My surname isn't Yu anymore. Ming was used to calling her that. When she said that, he was at a loss for words. Yu Lily thought about it and said, I think Daddy is right. Your father is getting on in years. If he gets too busy, it won't be good. You should go back first. You can set up the company first before I go back. No way. Ming refused without hesitation. What era are we in? Why are you still so superstitious? Ming's attitude was very firm. Yu Lily's heart wavered. But she was eventually persuaded by the elders. While they were discussing, the servants had finished preparing dinner. As they sat down at the table, Shin Manting returned home from work. After washing their hands, they sat together to eat. Yu Lily was a little embarrassed. After all, the relationship between them was somewhat complicated. Shin Manting could be considered as her rival in love. Therefore, Yu Lily didn't say anything, and just kept eating with her head down. Old Mrs. Shun seemed a little dissatisfied and asked, Where is Luoan? Why haven't you come out for dinner yet? The servant heard this and said, Young master went out last night, and hasn't come back yet. What about Julia? Why isn't he back yet? Young master just called back and said that there are more patients today, so he can't come back. He might have to work overtime, so he asked you to eat first. Old Mrs. Shun was even more displeased. She glanced at Shin Manting and asked, Why isn't Luoan back yet? Do you know where he went? Shin Manting had been silent since the beginning. When she heard old Mrs. Shun's question, she wiped the corners of her mouth with a napkin and said, He probably went to Kingstown. The new book will be released to everyone tomorrow. Book title, 99 Times Over the Wall. Hubby can't help it introduction. I'll kiss you wherever you kiss me. She accidentally kissed his crotch, and he put a bounty of 1 million on her head. On the surface, he was a cold-hearted young master who was loyal to the country. But in secret, he was a mysterious king of the underworld. She calculated step by step and cheated him of all his firsts. Then, she left all his assets and ran away. Who knew that the next day, she would be brought to the church with a knife? He announced, Marry me or die. Marry me. I'll marry you. Dash. Chapter 1377. Why did you go to Kingstown? Why didn't you tell your family? Old Mrs. Shun was even more displeased. Did you go to find Yu? Shin Manting nodded. I guess so. That's good. Divorce her quickly, and then I'll arrange your marriage for you, Old Mrs. Shun said. As Old Mrs. Shun spoke, she focused on eating her food. It was as if what she was talking about was no big deal. Yu Lily paused in the middle of eating, and looked up at Shin Manting. Shin Manting seemed to lower her head. Yu Lily didn't know if it was an illusion, But she seemed to see a strange expression on Shin Manting's face. Well, I'm full. Shin Manting stood up. Old Mrs. Shin glanced at her bowl and frowned. You only ate so little? Even a cat eats more than you do. Well, I haven't been feeling well recently, and I can't eat much. I'm going back to my room to work, Grandma, Shin Manting said as she turned to leave. Old Mrs. Shun was even more displeased. Work, work, all you know is work. You'd better keep an eye on Shin Luoan. This child runs around all day. And the people from the research department call every day to find him. You should tell him to pay attention to himself. In this family, he will listen to you. When Shin Manting heard that, she felt a little sarcastic. Will Shin Luoan listen to me? How is that possible? Shin Luoan only listens to himself. Everything else is just a plaything. She is, and so is Yi Yu. But Shin Manting still nodded and said, Got it. With that, she walked in the direction of her room. Old Mrs. Shun looked at Shin Manting and sighed faintly. She said, When I took a fancy to this child, I thought she would have fate with our family, but I didn't expect it to be fate with Shin Luoan. Anyway, Shin Luo and Yi Yu are not fated to be together. I can only let Shin Manting marry Shin Luoan. I think this child is also blessed. This child's life carried a baleful aura. This baleful aura not only affected her, but even the people around her would be affected by her. But once this evil will pass, the Shen family will definitely be connected to Shin Luoan. Not only the Shen family, but Shin Manting herself will also be safe for a lifetime. But if she can't endure love, old Mrs. Shin knew this. She could see her destiny, but she could not see through it. Old Mrs. Shin wasn't sure if Shin Manting's evil spirit had passed or not. Come to think of it, he should have passed, right? After all, the last time she tried to commit suicide by swallowing toiletries, it was already a disaster. Old Mrs. Shun frowned and lowered her head to eat. When Fenglin heard old Mrs. Shun's words, he asked, Isn't this girl your granddaughter? To marry your grandson this? They've been together for a long time. I don't know what possessed Luoan. In the past, he always wanted to marry Yi Yu, but after they got married, he ignored her. Later on, he got together with Manting. This matter caused quite a stir at the time. Lily should know about it, right? Lily heard that and nodded. I know. That's right. Forget it. Children and grandchildren have their own blessings. Let's wait for him to tell us. Let's eat. Lily had other ideas in mind. According to Yi Qianqian, Shen Luoan hated Yi Yu very much. His attitude was terrible. What was he going to do in Kingstown? Chapter 1378. After dinner, Lily slept with old Mrs. Shun as usual. Ming went to the office of the branch company in the capital to rest up. He gave Yi Qianqian a call. Yi Qianqian seemed to be very free, so she answered quickly. Oh my beautiful Lily, didn't you go out with your husband today? Why do you have time to call me? Yi Qianqian's eyes were glued to the computer. She was working overtime. Is your sister around? Lily asked. Yu isn't back yet. Why are you looking for her? Yi Qianqian looked at the time. It's only 7 o'clock now. Yu has been home a little late for the past 2 days. I don't know what she's doing out there. Well, Shin Luoan seems to have gone to Kingstown. If you see your sister, tell her that he's probably going to Kingstown to look for her. Yi Qianqian was a little surprised to hear that, but she quickly reprimanded him and said, Don't worry. Shin Luoan might look for anyone, but he would never look for Yu. Shin Luoan has a lot of friends. Perhaps he went to look for his friends. Yu's phone number has already been changed. There's no way he would be able to find her. Hearing that, Lily felt a little relieved and said, That's good. I heard that her relationship with Shin Luo isn't very good. Didn't I come to the capital recently? I saw him, and I felt a little weird. Why did he feel weird? Do you think he's very fierce? When Yi Qianqian thought of Shin Luoan, she became angry and said, That guy is just like that. He's weird. I suspect he's mentally ill. Even when Yu was hospitalized, he would peek at her from the door of the ward. Peek at her? Lily felt her hair stand on end. She felt a wave of disgust. That can't be. Isn't Shin Jilia quite normal? He's fine. Why is his brother so weird? Lily didn't dare speak loudly. After all, They were still in the Shun family. If the Shun family heard her badmouthing someone so openly, it would be embarrassing. She replied, "Who knows? Sigh, to think Shinjilia is a psychiatrist. Didn't he realize that his brother was mentally ill? I reckon that even if he finds out, Shin Luo, and won't say anything to Shinjilia. Shinjilia lives outside and doesn't live with his family." As Yi Lily spoke, she felt that she was being a little too nosy. She quickly changed the topic and said, "I've already conveyed the message to him. You'd better let your sister know, so that she'll be mentally prepared if he really goes looking for trouble with her. I'll go take a shower first. Grandma is still waiting for me to sleep." "Alright, go ahead." As Yi Chanqian spoke, she suddenly chuckled and said, "You have to be careful. Don't let his grandmother take advantage of you. F***CK, you think too much. I'm hanging up. Bye-bye." Yi Chanqian heard Yu Lily hang up the phone. She stared at the computer screen and let out a long sigh. She stretched her back and quickly picked up the phone to call Yi Yu's new number. Yi Yu seemed to be a little busy. After a few rings, she finally picked up the phone. "Hello, Yi Yu. Where are you?" I'm preparing to go back." "Okay. Alright. Lily just called me and told me that Shin Luo is in Kingstown. You have to be careful. He might come looking for trouble." Chapter 1379. When Yi Chanqian heard Yi Yu's words, her heart skipped a beat. No way. She didn't get a response from Yi Yu. Instead, she heard the busy tone on the other end of the line. Shen Luo, and looked at the caller on the screen. He raised his eyebrows slightly and said, "It's still this person. Did she teach you? You changed your phone number and address. Luckily, you haven't changed your job." Yi Yu's expression darkened even more. She had come to Kingstown to start a new life. Her husband, her past, and everything about her had become unsightly. She had thought that even if she died in Kingstown, Shin Luo and wouldn't care or ask about it. She had changed her phone number and moved in with Yi Chanqian, only to avoid harassment from her former classmates and gossip reporters. Because the injury on her arm hadn't fully recovered, Yi Yu hadn't been able to film at all. Therefore, she had found a job with her good friend and manager Mira to do odd jobs. She had never imagined that Shin Luo and would come all the way from the capital to Kingstown just to look for her. Furthermore, he had come all the way to the office. Yi Yu looked at the man in front of her with a sinister expression. It was obvious that he wasn't a kind person. Her heart ached. It had been a long time since she had seen him. Shen Luo looked even thinner. But none of this had anything to do with her. Yi Yu looked at him and asked sarcastically, "Are you here to divorce me? Why didn't you just give me a call? I'll be back right away. Why did you have to trouble young Master Shen to come all the way here for nothing?" When Shen Luo heard that, his already ugly expression darkened even further. It was as if ink had been splashed on his face. "Divorce." Shen Luo took a step forward and threw Yi Yu's cell phone on the floor with a loud clatter. He pinched Yi Yu's face and pushed her. Yi Yu's body collided with the tall stack of documents behind her. The documents were knocked over and fell onto the table. In the empty office, the sound was particularly loud. "You want to be with your lover after divorcing me? He pinched Yi Yu's cheeks without any mercy. "Your lover treats you really well. Look at what you're wearing. TSK. A gemstone necklace, gemstone earrings, and such a coquettish dress. Yi Yu, you've gone to sell yourself, haven't you? How much a night? Do you want your husband to take care of your business?" Shen Luo's voice was not loud, but his words were enough to make a woman's eyes redden. Especially the man she had once loved deeply. Looking at the man in front of her, Yi Yu's eyes reddened. She struggled hard, and her breathing became heavier. She shouted, "Are you crazy? Let go of me. What do you want?" Not only did Shin Luo not let go, but he squeezed her even tighter. "I'm hugging my wife. I'm hugging my wife. Why should I let go?" Shin Luo used a lot of strength. He laughed mockingly and said, "Or is it that I can't touch you now, so you want to keep your so-called chastity for your lover? Hee." Chapter 1380. These words again. Yi Yu's eyes reddened. The years of torture and the years of grievance had driven her to the brink of insanity. She tried to explain again and again, to let him know that it wasn't her at all. But it was useless. It was useless. Yi Yu grabbed his hand with both hands and tried to pull it away. But Shen Luoan was too strong. She couldn't move him at all. Shen Luoan, this is NC Company, not your hospital, and not the Shen family. I advise you to let go. If I don't call the security, you'll be embarrassed. Yi Yu's words were full of warning. Her original intention was for Shen Luoan to let go. But when those words fell into Shen Luoan's ears, it became a strong provocation. Not only did Shen Luoan not loosen his grip, but he tightened his grip. His masseter muscles tightened as he raised his other hand and slapped it hard on Yi Yu's face. Slap. The loud voice was even more ear-piercing in this quiet space. Yi Yu turned her head in disbelief and looked at Shen Luoan. Her eyes were full of disbelief. Her face was burning. The feeling was unfamiliar, but it was like it had drilled into her bones. It hurt so much that her whole body was twitching. Shen Luoan's eyes were red, and he roared. B***TCH. How dare you be so arrogant after cheating? You're so F***King B***TCH. As he spoke, his free hand lifted Yi Yu's skirt and touched her lower body. Yi Yu screamed and finally couldn't help but panic. She pressed his hand with both hands and shouted, Shen Luoan. Such an action was even more maddening in the eyes of a man. Shen Luoan clenched his teeth and sneered. He rubbed it hard and growled. I haven't even touched you, and you have another man. B***TCHI. What are you doing? A loud voice interrupted Shen Luoan's words. Before Shen Luoan could turn around, his arm was held tightly. Yi Yu's heart calmed down. She turned her head gratefully and saw a familiar face. It's really you, Shen Luo, and released Yi Yu and swung his fist at Li Jinnan's clean face with all his might. Li Jinnan had just finished his work and was holding a laptop in his hands. Out of the corner of his eye, Li Jinnan caught a glimpse of Shen Luoan's fist coming toward him. The sharpness of a soldier suddenly burst forth, and he reflexively lifted the computer to block Shen Luoan's fist. Shen Luoan's punch missed, and he was furious. He was about to punch again, but Li Jinnan's skill was obviously better than his. She turned the laptop around and slammed it into Shen Luoan's face. Shen Luoan screamed in pain and immediately turned his face away. Li Jinnan took the opportunity to twist the bones in his hand and pin him to the ground. Shen Luoan's hands were twisted, and his head was pressed to the ground by Li Jinnan's laptop. He struggled for a while, then suddenly laughed. I've long heard that third young Master Li has an extraordinary background. You're a retired major, but I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Of course, Li Jinnan knew this person. He narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, This is my company. I have no opinion on what you want to do with your wife, but you'd better change the venue. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll have to spend the night at the police station. Chapter 1381. Li Jinnan turned his head and saw Yi Yu's swollen face. He frowned and asked, Did he really hit you? He seemed to have heard something, but he couldn't hear it clearly. He didn't expect that the man would really hit a woman. You're not a man. Li Jinnan's tone was scornful. When Shen Luoan heard that, his masseter muscles tightened. He struggled even harder and said, Damn it. Let go of me. Let go of you. What do you want? Li Jinnan had no intention of letting go. He handed the laptop to Yi Yu. Hold it for me. Yi Yu reached out to take it, but Shen Luoan took advantage of the moment when Li Jinnan let go to suddenly flip over and sit up. He turned around and pushed Li Jinnan hard. Li Jinnan didn't react in time. When he was pushed away, his whole body fell backward. But he was a martial artist after all. Li Jinnan's body staggered, but he quickly steadied himself and caught him. Shen Luoan's eyes were filled with indignation. He reached out and wanted to choke Li Jinnan, but his hands were firmly locked behind his back. It was obvious that the strength and skills of the two were not on the same level. Shen Luoan's hands were twisted painfully. He sneered and said, Yi Yu, are you trying to murder your husband with your mistress? Mistress. Li Jinnan frowned and tightened his grip. In a low voice he said, Watch your mouth. Shen Luoan's hands were locked behind his back. The pain made his face pale, but his expression became more sinister. He sneered and said, "You dare to do it, but you don't dare to let others talk about it?" The boss of NC Entertainment, the pride of the Lee family, third young master Lee, actually keeps a man with a woman. If this gets out, what do you think the consequences will be? Shin Luoan, watch your mouth. GM Lee and I don't have that kind of relationship. Don't think that everyone is as dirty as you. Yi Yu was so angry that her face turned red. She shouted, "I don't know why you came to Kingstown. If you just came to humiliate me out of boredom, then congratulations. You've succeeded. Can you get out now?" Shen Luoan's face darkened. He stared at Yi Yu and said, "If it's not that kind of relationship, are you selling yourself for a job?" "Shut up." Li Jinnan gritted his teeth and dragged him toward the elevator. "You are the young master of the Shin family in the capital. Have you lost your manners?" Li Jinnan grabbed Shin Luo and quickly made his way to the elevator. Yi Yu grabbed Li Jinnan's laptop and quickly followed him. She pressed the button for the elevator. "You have manners. Wait till your wife makes you a cuckold. Let's see if you still have that kind of manners." Shen Luoan's lips seemed to be curling into a smile, but the malice and viciousness in it were completely exposed. "You're also a beast in human clothing. Otherwise, why would you sleep with someone else's wife?" That made Li Jinnan even angrier. After they got out of the elevator, Li Jinnan shoved Shin Luoan forcefully and said, "She's your wife. What's in it for you to humiliate your wife like that? I don't have that kind of relationship with her." He looked at Li Jinnan and raised his eyebrows. He tilted his head and looked at them. His gaze was indescribably sinister. That had better be the case. Otherwise, no one will have an easy time. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Yu. "Come here, my wife. The new book, 99 Times Dating. Hubby Can't Help It, has been published and is awaiting review. It will be available to everyone in the morning." Chapter 1382. Although he was calling her his wife, there was no intimacy between them. Instead, there was an indescribable sense of malice. Li Jinnan frowned. Judging from Shen Luoan's expression, it was obvious that he had come with ill intentions. Yi Yu's expression was one of resistance. She looked at him pleadingly and said, "GM Li, help me. I beg you. I advise you to mind your own business. Since you have nothing to do with her, you'd better turn around and leave now." Shen Luoan walked toward Yi Yu. "Third young master Li, you don't have to worry about us." Yi Yu stepped back and said, "Shen Luoan, you weren't like this in the past. If you wanted to take revenge on me, you've already done it. What else do you want? Please let me go, please." Those words were naturally directed at Shen Luoan, but more importantly, they were directed at Li Jinnan. Shen Luoan's face darkened. He strode forward and grabbed Yi Yu's hand. Before he could pull back, Shen Luoan felt a sharp pain in his arm. A hand had grabbed him. Li Jinnan twisted his hand violently. Shen Luoan was caught off guard, and he screamed in pain. "Go!" Li Jinnan shouted. Yi Yu didn't dare to stay any longer. She placed Li Jinnan's laptop by the side of the clean flower bed and ran down the stairs like the wind. Shen Luoan's hand was twisted, and his face was a little pale from the pain. He frowned and sneered. "Li Jinnan, since you are not her lover, aren't you being too diligent in meddling in the family affairs of a married couple?" Li Jinnan looked at Shen Luoan. Li Jinnan's face darkened. In a low voice he said, "Miss Yi is my employee. In my company, I have to be responsible for her safety." He turned his head and saw that Yi Yu had already walked far away. Only then did he release Shen Luoan. He turned around to pick up the laptop by the side of the flower bed. Even after the confrontation with Shen Luoan, Li Jinnan didn't show any signs of fatigue. His face wasn't red, and he wasn't out of breath. In contrast, Shen Luoan looked a little worse for wear. It was no wonder that Yi Yu would fall for such a man. But how could that be? Even if they said that there was nothing between them now, what about in the future? At the thought that Yi Yu could accuse him of being a cuckold at any time, Shen Luoan's heart felt as if it had been stuffed with a ball of cotton. He couldn't move it up or down. It was extremely uncomfortable. Shen Luoan looked at Li Jinnan's back as he prepared to leave. He raised his leg and kicked him hard in the back. Li Jinnan never expected Shen Luo and to launch such a sudden attack. Caught off guard, he fell straight down. As a soldier, Li Jinnan subconsciously adopted a defensive posture. A 1.9-meter tall man rolling down a flight of stairs that was more than 10 stories high was no laughing matter. Li Jinnan fell to the ground and gritted his teeth in pain. His face and body were burning with pain. He looked up and saw Shen Luo and walking down with his laptop. He smashed it viciously at Li Jinnan and said, "Be ****. Serves you right." In the time it took Shen Luo to walk down, Li Jinnan had already recovered. He leaped up and caught Shen Luo on the ground. Shen Luo didn't expect this guy to be so tenacious. He was surprised, but he laughed and said, "I really underestimated you." Chapter 1383. What happened? The building's security guard finally ran out. When he saw the scratches on Li Jinnan's face, his heart skipped a beat. "GM Li this?" Li Jinnan only glanced at him with a dark expression. He ignored him and said, "You underestimate a lot of things." He turned to look at the computer on the floor. The metal body of the computer was already a little twisted. It wasn't hard to imagine what the screen inside looked like. Liquid flowed down from his forehead, and Li Jinnan's vision was quickly obscured. He wiped it with his hand and said, "How long do you think I'll be locked up for intentional assault and damage to personal property?" Shen Luo made up his mind and laughed coldly. "You dare to send me to the police station? See if I dare." Li Jinnan pressed him down and turned to the security guard. "Get me a rope." The security guard felt guilty and quickly did as he was told. The police station was right next to the building. Li Jinnan opened the door with familiarity and walked in. Very quickly, the police inside looked over. One of the young police officers who looked a little too robust saw Li Jinnan and quickly ran up to him. As soon as he walked in, he saw Li Jinnan's appearance. He gasped and asked, "Third brother, did this guy do this?" The scratches on Li Jinnan's body weren't serious, but they looked hideous. The police officer's heart ached for him and said, "Aya, such a handsome face. How can you be disfigured? Come over here and let me help you apply some medicine. Sun Yi, come and detain this guy." "Coming." Li Jinnan shook his head and waved his hand. "There's no need." This kind of injury was nothing to Li Jinnan. It was just a superficial scratch. "You damaged personal property, and you even ambushed me and kicked me down the stairs. I'm afraid the computer can't be used anymore. You decide what to do." Li Jinnan released him and touched his face. There wasn't any blood, but it hurt a little. Under such circumstances, his image wasn't going to be any better. All right. Leave it to me. Come, third brother, let me apply some medicine for you." Mo Yuanshan pulled Li Jinnan and asked, "Who is this guy to do this? Is he tired of living?" "He's from the capital. His surname is Shun." Oh, Mo Yuanshan didn't know what kind of famous people there were in the capital, and who Shinjilia was. But from what Li Jinnan said, it seemed like he was very powerful. "No matter what in Kingstown, third brother, you don't have to be afraid of anyone." Mo Yuanshan cleaned Li Jinnan's wound and asked, "By the way, is your older brother married? He's already 33 this year, right?" Li Jinnan glanced at him and asked, "Why? Are you going to introduce someone to him?" "You even know that? That's amazing. I really have someone to introduce to him." "Don't say that to me. Tell that to my older brother. My parents and grandpa are all rushing him. If he could be moved, he would have done it a long time ago." Li Jinnan gasped. "Be gentle. Hey, what about you? I'm getting married next month. You have to come. You're already 29. You're not young anymore. It's time for you to find a girlfriend. I have a..." "Stop, don't talk. Can you apply the ointment quietly? If not, I'll go home and do it myself." Mo Yuanshan immediately shut up and quietly applied the ointment. After 10 seconds of silence, he spoke again. "What's going on between you and that Shinjilia? Is he looking for trouble with you?" Chapter 1384. Furthermore, he hadn't had much contact with Yi Yuyu recently. Even when Yi Yuyu had been hospitalized for a month, Li Jinnan had only visited her twice to avoid arousing suspicion. That night was Yi Yuyu's first time, And it was also his first time. Li Jinnan had never tasted a woman before. But that night wasn't bad. Originally, he had thought that he would be responsible for Yi Yu. Regardless of whether it was a scheme or an accident, it was still a one-night stand. He would accept it. Who knew that she was already married? Based on Li Jinnan's upbringing, he wouldn't get involved with a married woman. However, perhaps all men had a strange, deep-rooted bad habit. A woman that he had slept with, regardless of whether he liked her or not, would always leave a deep impression. Therefore, while Li Jinnan avoided arousing suspicion in his personal life, he would intentionally or unintentionally take care of her at work. Could it be that he was taking care of her too much? Was that why she had attracted her husband's attention and taken such extreme measures? Li Jinnan guessed in his heart and was slightly distracted. Mo Yuanshan called out, "Third brother?" "Yes." Li Jinnan looked at Mo Yuanshan. "Is it done?" "Yes. That guy's confession is out. He said that you seduced his wife." Mo Yuanshan looked at the confession and laughed out loud. "This guy must be crazy. Can't he come up with a better excuse? Third brother, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. It's a small matter." When Li Jinnan heard that, he became more and more annoyed. He stood up and said, "Fine. You settle it. I'm leaving." "All right. Be careful." Li Jinnan walked out of the police station and returned to the company's garage to retrieve his car. His heart was filled with displeasure. Li Jinnan lit a cigarette and started smoking. He looked at the broken computer in his hand and felt a headache coming on. He dialed Luo Zhan's number and started the car. When he arrived at Luo Zhan's house, he seemed to be extremely busy. The smart door opened. When Li Jinnan entered, he saw Luo Zhan's fingers flying across the keyboard. Luo Zhan turned his head and saw Li Jinnan's bandaged face. His eyelids twitched. F***ck, third brother, were you in a fight? Li Jinnan wasn't in the mood to explain. He said, "Help me export the documents. I need them tomorrow." "That's it." Luo Zhan was speechless. "Your second brother also knows how to do it. You should ask your second brother." "Looking for my second brother? How am I supposed to explain my face? What if the children saw it? If my sister-in-law saw this, wouldn't she tell Grandpa and my parents?" Li Jinnan was a little annoyed. "You're still the most reliable. Even if I suddenly come to your house, you're not afraid of bumping into a woman." Luo Zhan. Luo Zhan was Luo Zhan after all. He pursed his lips and honestly found a USB flash drive to direct it to him. He took out a pack of cigarettes and lit another one. "Brother Luo, you've had a girlfriend before. Why do you think a woman would reject her husband?" Luo Zhan said, "I did have a girlfriend, but I didn't have a deep relationship with her. Therefore, it was impossible for it to reach the stage that he mentioned. What do you think?" "It's probably because the man is not good enough," Luo Zhan said casually. When those words fell into Li Jinnan's ears, he had a sudden realization. So that was how it was, no wonder. Chapter 1385. After thinking about all this, Li Jinnan suddenly seemed to understand. Li Jinnan exhaled a long puff of smoke. He was very sympathetic and tapped the cigarette ash. Luo Zhan frowned and said with disgust, "You should control your smoking addiction. We are a family. Your second brother doesn't smoke. Why are you so addicted to smoking? You are the same age. My second brother has a son and a daughter. Why are you still single?" Luo Zhan was rendered speechless by Li Jinnan's nonchalant words. Luo Zhan angrily pulled out the USB drive and threw it on him. "Well, you can go back now." Li Jinnan picked up the USB drive and patted Luo Zhan on the shoulder. "Thank you. Goodbye." Luo Zhan was speechless. F***ck. Can't you be more sincere? Li Jinnan didn't look back. He closed the door and left. F***ck. Luo Zhan felt that he had made a bad friend. Li Xiqing was like this. Oming was like this. Now, even Li Jinnan was like this. What kind of atmosphere is this? It's too much. Is it because I am too easy to bully? No. Impossible. It must be because they are two bullies. Luo Zhan turned back to the computer and continued to work. The more he thought about it, the more indignant he became. He picked up his phone, opened his WeChat moments and posted, I made a bad friend. As soon as he posted it, he received a like. It was from you, Lily. She also commented, ha 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 ha. Did you get cheated by Qianqian's husband again? Did you just find out that my husband is a good friend? F***ck. Oh, Ming and Li Xiqing are the same. Jackals of the same tribe. No one is any better. When he was about to reply, Su Qianxi also liked it and replied to you, Lily. I wanted to say that I was cheated by your husband. You're the bad guy. Sister-in-law, your husband is bad. My husband is a good guy. Sister-in-law Lao Air, go away. My husband is at home. He didn't do anything. Don't wrongly accuse him. Sister-in-law, my husband is also in the capital. He didn't do anything. Who is it? Su Qianxi and Yu Lily stopped arguing and replied to Luo Zhan in unison. Who is it? Luo Zhan was still watching with great interest, but all of a sudden, the spearhead turned to him, and he began to panic. When she was about to reply to Li Laosan, Yu Lily replied, Is it Louis Han? Su Qianxi thought, It's hard to say. That guy is not a good guy, ha ha ha. Luo Zhan laughed out loud. Louis Han was unjustly accused. Luo Zhan had just typed a few words. All guessed wrong. Just as he sent out the message, another comment appeared. Louis Han colon? Sister-in-law replied to Louis Han. Tell me, did you do something to Luo Zhan? Second sister-in-law replied to Louis Han. You must have done something bad again. Louis Han. Aggrieved, who did I offend? When Luo Zhan saw Louis Han's reply, he couldn't help but stare at it for a while. Long time no see, Louis Han. Other colleagues also liked it. Some gossipy people asked him what happened, but Luo Zhan was not in the mood to reply. He dropped the phone, turned his head and continued to work. But just as he put down the phone, he heard his phone ring. Louis Han. Are you free tomorrow? Let's go play together. Luo Zhan looked at the message and thought he had read it wrong. He picked up the phone and looked at it several times to confirm. Chapter 1386. Luo Zhan almost screamed. Looking at the only line of words on the phone screen, his heart was beating faster and faster. Go out tomorrow? Where to go? Who will be there? How many people? Just the two of them? Countless thoughts flashed through Luo Zhan's mind, but after thinking about it he replied slowly. What time tomorrow? I'm a little busy during the day. I have a case to do, so I'm working overtime. Louis Han. Tomorrow night. There are a lot of friends, many of whom you know. Let's go together? Oh, a lot of friends. And they all know each other. Luo Zhan was a little disappointed. After about a minute he replied, Okay. Whatever, let's go. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Luo Zhan put down the phone, turned his head, and continued to work. Time flew by. Luo Zhan had a day of meetings, and he was a little tired. But thinking of the date tonight, he calmed himself down. After tidying himself up, he asked Louis Han for the address. It was a bar. There were many people there, and people in Louis Han's company liked to go there to have sex. There were many beautiful women and handsome men there, and the business was very good. Luo Zhan had always heard them talk about it, but he had never been there. He drove there with the GPS. As soon as he entered the bar, a beautiful woman with a slender waist came up to him, with a charming smile on her face. Luo Zhan saw the smile, and the woman was looking at him, so he smiled back subconsciously. But who knew that the beautiful woman would smile like that, and she would come to Luo Zhan and say, Why haven't you come for a long time? I miss you so much. Then she hooked one leg and hugged Luo Zhan with one arm. Luo Zhan was shocked and said, What are you doing? Seeing Luo Zhan's reaction, the beautiful woman laughed and said, Don't you know me? Last time, we went to the Shangri-La Hotel. Tonight let's go. Hearing this, Luo Zhan knew that it must be Luo Rant's romantic debt. Pushing the beautiful woman away, Luo Zhan said seriously, Beauty, you have the wrong person. The person you know is my twin brother. I don't know you. The smile on the beautiful woman's face froze, and she pushed Luo Zhan charmingly. You're so annoying. Just say it. What are you pretending for? What's wrong? Do you have a new prey you like? Do you want me to help you as your little sister? Luo Zhan replied, No, I'm here to find a friend. I'll talk to you later. Bye. With that he slipped away. The beauty was flustered and exasperated. Damn you, stinky man. You don't want me anymore after just one time? It's not that cheap. Luo Zhan only felt as if there were needles on his back. He turned his head and saw the charming beauty just now glaring at him. He immediately turned back. Damn it, this damned Luo ran. Luo Zhan here. A familiar voice came. It was Lu Yihan's colleague. Luo Zhan walked over and saw Lu Yihan sitting in the crowd. Lu Yihan seemed to have lost a lot of weight, looking taller and slimmer. The blue veins on the back of his hands were more obvious, and his Adam's apple and cheekbones were more prominent. This fellow didn't seem to have seen second brother's sister-in-law recently. Could it be that he's lovesick? Thinking of this, Luo Zhan felt a little upset. Chapter 1387. Luo Zhan's shoulder was hooked, and Lu Yihan's colleague suddenly came up, holding a glass of wine in his hand, and said, "Come on, drink up." Subconsciously turning his head to look at Lu Yihan, Luo Zhan took the glass of wine and drank it all at once. Good alcohol tolerance. The surrounding people clapped their hands, saying, "Yihan, look at your good buddy drinking, why don't you drink? Come on, it's not a big deal to fall out of love, it's not a big deal." The amount of information in these words almost made Luo Zhan spit out the wine in his stomach again. This fall out of love? This guy fell out of love? Got dumped? How could it be? Yes, don't you know? The colleagues around Lu Yihan nodded, and suddenly began to gossip. She pulled Luo Zhan to sit down and said, "Let me tell you, Yihan had a girlfriend some time ago. She is very beautiful and has a good figure. She comes to our company every day to see him, but I don't know why. She hasn't come recently." Let me guess. The colleague's voice had not been loud, but when it came to this point, her voice was even lower. She said, "Have you noticed that Lu Yihan has lost a lot of weight recently?" Nonsense. He had noticed it the first time he saw it. Luo Zhan turned to look at the colleague and asked, "Is it because he was dumped, and he is heartbroken, so he is like this?" No. The colleague immediately shook his head and said, "How could this guy be dumped by a woman? He was the one who dumped that girl." Ah. Luo Zhan could not understand and asked, "Why?" The colleague was very excited and clapped her hands, saying, "You are asking the right question. Why? We are also guessing." Lu Yihan was playing with his mobile phone in the crowd, looking around, and finally his eyes fell on the gossip colleague next to Luo Zhan. He picked up a piece of fruit peel and threw it at him, saying, "Don't talk nonsense. You only know how to spread rumors." The colleague reached out to take the peel and said with a smile, "Of course not, but you are really amazing. You even hide it from your best buddy. You are not a good friend. The best of brothers, is that him?" For some reason, Luo Zhan felt a little happy in his heart. See, at least in the eyes of others, their relationship was still very good. "Shut up, don't talk nonsense." Lu Yihan gave him a warning look, and the colleague immediately became quiet. This made things difficult for Luo Zhan. He didn't even finish his words. This feeling of not being able to go up or down was extremely uncomfortable in his heart. Luo Zhan looked at the person next to him, his face full of question marks. However, the man shrugged and said, "Hey, I'm going to the bathroom." He stood up and walked out. Luo Zhan immediately stood up and said, "I'll go too. Didn't you just arrive? Are you going to the bathroom?" Lu Yihan knew what they were going to do at a glance and asked, but Luo Zhan didn't care at all. He turned his head and said confidently, "I have kidney deficiency." Under everyone's speechless gaze, Luo Zhan followed his colleague forward and urged, "What's going on?" The colleague turned to look behind her and said, "Ever since Yihan had that girlfriend, he's been getting thinner and thinner. We all suspect that he couldn't take it anymore, so he dumped her." Luo Zhan said, "That's impossible, right? Hey, you don't know how seductive that woman is. Let me show you a photo." She quickly took out her phone and pulled up the photo. Luo Zhan looked at it and was stunned. Chapter 1388. She had willowy eyebrows, a pair of big round eyes, a high nose bridge, an oval face and loose hair. She looked pure and beautiful. She was a great beauty. At first glance, she looked a bit like the wife of his second brother. Was this a coincidence? No way. Luo Zhan had seen Lu Yihan's feelings for her clearly over the years. He should just be looking for a substitute. Seeing that Luo Zhan did not speak, the colleague only thought that he was stunned by the beauty of the woman in the photo inside. I have to say that this woman is really beautiful, but she is also very playful. At first glance, you can tell that she is a strong woman, so Lu Yihan can't stand it. In other words, they had slept together? Luo Zhan felt uncomfortable. Staring at the photo, he pretended to ask casually, "How is her personality?" "Personality? Quite wild and hot. I like this type. However, I can't flirt with my friend's wife or I will." Luo Zhan could not listen anymore, turned around and walked back. "Hey, okay, I will stop pretending. Why are you running?" The colleague shouted behind Luo Zhan. Luo Zhan's mind was full of that face. That face was indeed somewhat similar to Su Qianxi's. Quite wild and hot. That was to say, it was not the same as Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi's character was very gentle and well-behaved, and she was always with his second brother. So did Lu Yihan break up with her because of this? Because the girl's character was actually not the same as Su Qianxi's. So Lu Yihan felt that he had found the wrong substitute, so he broke up with her. So, why did Lu Yihan lose so much weight during this time? Was it because of a bad appetite? Or was it because of a bad stomach? As Luo Zhan thought about it, the noise in front of him had been restored. Looking at the red lights and green wine in front of him, the hot women coming and going, and the frivolous playboys, Luo Zhan found that he was deceiving himself. This was the world. Lu Yihan was already an adult man. He had his own life and his own choices. Even if he really slept with that woman, so what? Anyway, it was impossible between the two of them. Luo Zhan was well aware of this, but when he thought of this, his heart became more and more uncomfortable. Sighing heavily, Luo Zhan closed his eyes and murmured, Luo Zhan, wake up. You are a man." He opened his eyes and walked forward. Compared to just now, Luo Zhan was much more enthusiastic. She drank one glass after another, and encouraged others to drink, but she never looked at Lu Yihan again. Lu Yihan did not touch a drop of alcohol the whole night. Luo Zhan saw it. When he was half drunk, he looked at Lu Yihan with a glass of wine and teased, "Hey Lu Yihan, why are you more and more like a gigolo? Trying to lose weight? You're so skinny that you look like a ghost. Do you know how ugly you are?" Lu Yihan's eyes were sober. Looking at Luo Zhan's flushed face, he calmly said, "You are drunk." When Luo Zhan heard that, he smiled and ignored him. He held the wine glass and drank it again. Lu Yihan couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped forward and snatched the glass away from him. "Don't you know that you can't drink? No one will care about you even if you die on the side of the road." Chapter 1389. The woman was wearing a tight silver dress that left her shoulders bare. Her arms were fair and delicate, and her face was painted with exquisite makeup. One look was enough to tell that she was a veteran who frequented nightclubs. When the crowd saw this woman, they all whistled. "Who is this? Aren't you going to introduce her to us? I didn't expect an honest boy like you to find such a beautiful girl." "Not honest? Ha ha ha." They spoke one after another, causing Luo Zhan to be somewhat annoyed. Waving his hand, Luo Zhan said impatiently, "What the hell? Where did this pheasant come from? Do I even know you?" When the woman heard this, her expression changed again and again. "What do you mean? I already said that I don't know you, but you insist on pestering me like this. If you're not a wild chicken, what are you?" Luo Zhan's tone was obviously very bad. Hey, how can you treat a beauty like this? You'll be punished by heaven if you do this." Some people around had already begun to feel pity for him. They looked at Luo Zhan reproachfully and said, "Beauty, this boy is drunk. Don't lower yourself to his level." But before he finished speaking, the man looked behind her with his eyes wide open. Not only him, but even the people around him all looked behind the woman. Behind the woman, more than a dozen tall and powerful men had already walked out, all wearing tight t-shirts. They all stood behind the woman, looking at the men in front of them with unfriendly expressions. The beauty sneered, looked at Luo Zhan and said, "If you have the guts, say what you just said again." Luo Zhan's back was facing them, so he naturally did not see their current situation. But when he saw the situation of his companions, he subconsciously turned around as well. With one glance, Luo Zhan was dumbfounded. He was just simply in a bad mood, so he wanted to vent. What was going on now? Luo Zhan felt a little flustered and said, "What do you want?" The woman was very satisfied with Luo Zhan's expression. She turned to look at the tallest man in the crowd and said, "Brother, you heard that. This guy didn't pay me, and he even King called me a wild chicken. Help me teach him a lesson." Luo Zhan was a homebody, a well-deserved homebody. He was the kind of otaku with disheveled hair and a dirty face who had cancer of laziness. His muscles had already turned into fat. Seeing this, Luo Zhan's eyes widened. He looked at the group of people behind him and said, "There must be some misunderstanding. To be honest, I have schizophrenia. Just now it was my other personality that spoke." The beauty in the lead sneered and said, "Then your personality switch is quite free. Big brother, beat him up." The beautiful woman waved her hand, and the muscular men behind her stepped forward. One by one, they flexed their muscles and quickly surrounded her. Luo Zhan sat where he was and suddenly sneered. He looked at them with a very calm expression and said, "Are you sure you want to do this? I'm warning you, you'll regret it. My big brother is around here. If he finds out that you bullied me, you'll die a horrible death." Hearing this, those people all laughed. The leader raised his leg and stepped on the table in front of Luo Zhan. He said, "Is that so? What's your brother's name?" Chapter 1390. Everyone was listening attentively. Seeing Luo Zhan's serious look, they thought he really had something up his sleeve. But when they heard the roar, everyone immediately understood. They had been tricked. The muscular man was suddenly pushed down and fell to the ground in an instant, appearing to be in a somewhat sorry state. At the same time, those who had been sitting down suddenly got up and dispersed. The muscular man who had been pushed down was furious and roared, "Stop!" His strong arm grabbed at Luo Zhan's leg. Luo Zhan lost his balance and fell forward. But the pain he had imagined didn't come. Instead, he fell into a soft and pungent embrace. Luo Zhan's lips kissed the breasts of the beautiful woman. The soft and fragrant touch would have made any man's heart flutter. But Luo Zhan wasn't an ordinary man. Such a touch that would make ordinary people feel good and happy was no different from a wild beast to Luo Zhan. Eyes wide, Luo Zhan subconsciously used his hands to prop himself up. But who knew that the beautiful woman would hug him and twist her body? She said, "Why didn't you do this earlier? What are you pretending for? We had a good time last time, didn't we?" As she spoke, the beautiful woman's mouth moved closer and asked, "You don't have a girlfriend yet, do you?" Luo Zhan's eyes widened. He suddenly felt goosebumps all over his body. This woman was obviously a slut. Not only had she slept with Luo Ran, but now she wanted to sleep with Luo Ran's younger twin brother? Puffed. How could the two good children of the Luo family be tainted by such a slut? Luo Zhan turned his head in resistance and pushed the beautiful woman away. But this action made the beautiful woman, who had just calmed down, angry again. She shouted, "Beat him up!" The surrounding people rushed forward and surrounded Luo Zhan. The people just now had already run far away. Fortunately, they didn't chase after them. The target of that group was Luo Zhan. "Hey, we just left Luo Zhan behind like this. Isn't that bad?" "No, that woman is obviously interested in Luo Zhan. Maybe she wants to develop a relationship with him. But Luo Zhan doesn't seem to like that woman. Will he really develop a relationship with her? Besides, Luo Zhan's words were so harsh just now. It's really easy to get beaten up. Shall we go back and have a look?" The sounds of discussion could be heard. Louis Han panted and stopped. He looked at his friends and said, "I'll go back and check. If I don't come back in 5 minutes, call the police and come back together. Do you understand?" "It's okay, I guess. Luo Zhan is very clever." "I think so too. And that woman probably can't bear to do anything to Luo Zhan. At most, she will drag him to get a room, ha ha ha." When Louis Han heard that, he suddenly felt a little guilty. Would Luo Zhan accept a woman? No, probably not. This guy wasn't the kind of person who was half-hearted. And it was even more impossible for him to be bisexual. Moreover, this fellow's mouth was so despicable. He might really get beaten up. Louis Han thought, quickened his pace, and ran back to the bar. The bar was getting closer and closer. Louis Han ran in and saw the crowd. Chapter 1391. There was a lot of discussion in the crowd. Louis Han was shocked and rushed in at the first time. When he saw Luo Zhan, his face was already bruised and held by two people. Many people were looking at this side, but no one came forward. Damn! Louis Han only felt a rush of blood to the top of his head. Luo Zhan. Luo Zhan looked up a little awkwardly. His lips were bruised and swollen. Seeing Louis Han's livid face, he actually felt a little happy. Resisting the pain on his face, Luo Zhan twitched the corner of his mouth and said with a slightly teasing look, "What are you doing? Haven't you seen someone get beaten before?" This look, it was like when they were still living together. Every time he cooked, he would solemnly vow, "Today, I must let you taste what is called the Manchu Han Imperial Feast." But every time it ended in failure. Every time, he would look unrepentant and loudly say, "What are you doing? Haven't you seen a chef fail before?" Memories came to him all at once. After all, they were friends for many years. Louis Han's heart seemed to be blocked. His masseter muscles tightened, and he rushed forward to pull the man who was holding Luo Zhan. There was a commotion around. All of them were people who were not afraid of getting into trouble. Some people even whistled to add to the fun. No one had the slightest intention to intervene. Louis Han's skills were not bad, but he was just an IT man. In terms of physical strength and skills, how could he compare with those people who had been in the underworld for a long time? For a time, it was a hard fight. But Louis Han only hit a few times, and the situation was one-sided. Idiot. Luo Zhan really wanted to take him to see what a pig's brain looked like. In this case, couldn't it be over directly to the police? How could these thin arms and legs be the opponents of this group of muscular men? Just when Luo Zhan thought that he was going to be crippled here today, the crowd suddenly quieted down. "Don't move. Police!" Although at the beginning, the person who fell in the bar was Luo Zhan. But later, compared to Louis Han, Luo Zhan's injury seemed to be much lighter. The two were sent to the hospital by their colleagues. After a simple application of medicine, the colleagues went home, while Louis Han and Luo Zhan squatted at the door of the hospital and did not move. No one said they would leave first. The moon tonight seemed to be exceptionally round and bright. Luo Zhan looked at the sky. It was dark, and a few scattered stars were far away from the moon. They were so faint that they were hard to see. The weather of early summer was neither hot nor cold. The two of them sat on the steps and listened to the chirping of the insects around them. They did not move for a long time. "I'm sorry I've implicated you." Luo Zhan didn't look back and said in a flippant tone, "That woman is my brother's mistress. She mistook me for my brother. Damn, I was almost dragged to the hotel. Fortunately, I was quick-witted. Otherwise, my wife would not be able to enjoy my virginity in the future. Alas, tonight was so thrilling." Luo Zhan had a look of lingering fear. He exhaled and said, "But why did you come back in one piece? They would let me go after beating me up a few times. After all, with my looks, they wouldn't bear to beat me up too much. You're different. You're ugly from head to toe. Who else would they beat if not you?" Louis Han turned to look at Luo Zhan and suddenly laughed. "Why are you so shameless?" His tone was relaxed just like before. Luo Zhan was stunned and turned to look at Louis Han. Seeing his eyes that were as bright as the night stars, Luo Zhan's lips twitched, but it hurt so much that he sucked in a breath. "Damn, I'm going back. I don't want to accompany you to feed the mosquitoes." Chapter 1392. When Luo Zhan heard that, he suddenly laughed. He turned around and walked toward the parking lot of the bar. Raising his head, he glanced at the hazy moon above his head. It seemed that the weather was pretty good. 2 days passed, and Li Jinan didn't appear in the office. Yi Yuyu went to work and got off work every day, but she didn't hear any mention of Li Jinan from her colleagues. It wasn't just Li Jinan. Even Shen Luoan didn't appear again. The past 2 days had been unbelievably quiet. It was as if the previous episode had been nothing more than a minor accident. Yu Yu got off work as usual. A colleague that she was close with, Xiao Su, came up to her and asked, Yu Yu, do you want to go shopping with us? Xiao Su was a very pretty girl. She was very popular in the office. Yu Yu had a good impression of her. When she heard that, she remembered that it had been a long time since she'd gone shopping. She nodded her head and replied, sure. Xiao Su's eyes immediately turned into crescents. She happily said, let's go eat then. I haven't bought clothes in a long time. Come on, let's eat our fill before we go shopping. She affectionately went up to Yu Yu's arm and said, you're a celebrity. You'll definitely have better taste than I do. Yu Yu worked at the office with the mindset of learning. Everyone in the office was aware of Yu Yu's identity as an artist. They all treated her with adoration and affection. It was perfectly normal for Xiao Su to say that. But when those words fell into the ears of some people, they undoubtedly sounded like flattery. Hey, Xiao Su, even if you want to suck up to someone better, you should find someone better to suck up to. People who don't know better would think that you're so shabby now. A woman who looked a little older said. Her eyes were filled with disdain and hostility. Yu Yu knew this woman. She and Xiao Su were from the same department. The two of them were competitors for the same position, and their results were often about the same. The difference wasn't huge. All along, Xiao Su had a good relationship with the department. It was only with this woman that she was at loggerheads with. Xiao Su obviously didn't like this woman either. She snorted coldly. It's none of your business who I want to be friends with. You're just a dog trying to catch a mouse. When she was about to turn around and leave, she heard the man say, we are all colleagues. I just don't want you to lose too badly. At first, everyone thought that there was something between her and the CEO. After all, that kind of popular role was something that all the popular stars wanted, but no one could get it. But it was given to such a half-new and half-lukewarm artist. I just didn't expect that. The man held the briefcase and sneered as he passed by Xiao Su. Xiao Su was a little angry and said, why are you so dark in your heart? You got in through a proper audition. Her acting skills are much better than that thigh you hugged. It's just that her luck wasn't that good. Who would have thought that they would encounter such an accident during filming? Little Sue's heart ached a little. Yi didn't give up on herself. She even came to the company to study. She's much better than you. The man's face was full of disdain. Idiot. With that, he walked away with his head held high. Halfway down the stairs, a rather inconspicuous Land Rover stopped in front of them. The car window was rolled down, revealing the slightly scarred and resolute face inside. He turned to look at Yi Yu and said, get in. Dash. Chapter 1393. Xiao Su and the girl who had just spoken were shocked. They looked at her in disbelief. Li Jinnan sat in the car calmly. The scab on his face had already formed a scab. It was eye-catching on his clean and handsome face. Yi Yu was shocked to see Li Jinnan like that. When she heard that word, she looked at the two colleagues beside her. At that moment, it wasn't just the two of them. Even the passers-by were looking at Yi Yu strangely. Yi Yu felt a chill down her spine. She braced herself and asked, GM Li, is something the matter? When Li Jinnan heard that, he only glanced at her and repeated, get in the car. With her colleagues watching, Yi Yu was a little reluctant. If I get in the car at that moment, what will my colleagues think? Will they think that I'm Li Jinnan's mistress? Just as Yi Yu was deep in thought, Xiao Su nudged her and said, Yu, GM Li is calling for you. Hurry up and get in the car. Shen is nearby. Li Jinnan didn't say his name. The look he gave her was unreadable. I could only get the police to keep him in custody for 48 hours. He was released last night. Yi Yu was stunned. Her heart skipped a beat. She instinctively looked to her left and right. Yi Yu naturally knew who Shen Liangchuan was referring to. No wonder she hadn't seen Shen Luo for the past 2 days. He had been detained by the police. She knew that Shen Luo wouldn't let it go so easily. Get in the car. This is the last time. Li Jinnan's voice was low. As he spoke, he started the car. Yi Yu's heart skipped a beat. She turned to look at Xiao Su apologetically and said, I'm sorry. Let's do it another day. With that, Yi Yu opened the front passenger door and got in. Without waiting for Yi Yu to fasten her seatbelt, Li Jinnan stepped on the accelerator and drove forward. The car was big, but the air pressure was a little low. Li Jinnan drove a little fast. Yi Yu fastened her seatbelt, but her heart couldn't stop racing. "Miss Yi, do you love your husband?" Li Jinnan asked without turning his head, as he placed both hands on the steering wheel. Yi Yu never expected that the first thing she would hear from Li Jinnan after getting into the car would be that. When he buckled his seatbelt, the sound of the buckling was especially loud. She looked up at Li Jinnan. His side profile, which was usually almost perfect, now had a few scratches and scabs. He still looked a little out of place. Sensing Yi Yu's shocked gaze, Li Jinnan turned his head to look at her. He quickly averted his gaze and looked straight ahead. Yi Yu was still in a state of shock. It took her a long time to regain her composure. She mumbled, "Jiemli, why do you ask?" "Your husband is sick." Li Jinnan was concise and to the point. "I can tell that he's a little out of his mind. I see that you're often in Kingstown. Even when you were hospitalized, he didn't come by more than a few times. I heard from your sister that you don't have a good relationship with your husband. Is it a marriage of convenience? Marriage for show. In other words, marriage for show. It usually occurs in homosexuals and people with high status who have hidden diseases. This kind of person needed a partner to maintain their image in society. But there would be no love or sexual relationship with the partner they married. The other half of such a person was very pitiful." Chapter 1394. Wasn't their marriage just a marriage of convenience? Apart from the marriage certificate, there was no other relationship between her and Shin Luo, and that was similar to that between husband and wife. Nothing at all. The love of the past also slowly dissipated along with the coldness he had been showing all this time. Yi Yu's eyes were filled with sorrow. The smile on her face was filled with indescribable bitterness. Li Jinnan took in her expression clearly. Very quickly, he turned his head back and slowly said, "Get a divorce. Marry me." If Yi Yu had only been shocked a moment ago, then she was now terrified. She looked at Li Jinnan in disbelief. It was as if she was looking at a lunatic. Li Jinnan drove steadily. His voice was magnetic, but his tone was cold. When he said those words, his face didn't show much emotion. In fact, he was expressionless. This must be a joke, right? Yi Yu was a little frightened. She laughed dryly and said, "Jiemli, please don't make such jokes." Li Jinnan turned the steering wheel, and the car turned into a small road. The car slowed down. The car quickly came to a stop. Li Jinnan turned his head to look at her and asked, "Do I look like I'm joking?" Indeed, he didn't. Furthermore, would Li Jinnan joke? He didn't look like someone who would joke. He was from a military background. He was a man of his word, wasn't he? But why would Li Jinnan have such thoughts? Yi Yu felt a little frightened. She looked at Li Jinnan without saying a word. Li Jinnan looked at her. He took out a pack of cigarettes and slowly lit one. Yi Yu stared at the orange-red flame that burned the tip of the cigarette into ashes. The flame flickered, mirroring her current mood. "I've never had a girlfriend, and I've never touched another woman. That night was your first time, and it was my first time as well. No matter how you look at it, you're not at a disadvantage." Li Jinnan flicked the ash off his cigarette and said, "Since your relationship with your husband isn't harmonious, it's best to get a divorce early. A marriage of convenience. The only thing that mattered between them was profit." Li Jinnan didn't think he was bad. At the very least, he was much better than Shin Luoan. Compared to a husband of convenience who was prone to domestic violence, an outstanding man like Li Jinnan should be much more attractive. A normal woman, no matter how stupid she was, would know what to choose. Li Jinnan was very confident. He didn't think that Yi Yu would reject him. When Yi Yu heard those words, she felt a little uncomfortable. Because it was her first time, and because she had never had sex with Shin Luoan before, he felt that she was acceptable, so he felt that he could marry her. Was that what he meant? And would it be Li Jinnan's first time? Li Jinnan was only 1 year younger than Shin Luoan. He was already 29 years old. Such a man still had his first time, and it was with her. Yi Yu found it hard to believe. GM I'm married. With your status and background, you can go find young and beautiful girls who haven't been married before. She couldn't understand what he was thinking. She continued, if you feel that you need to be responsible for me because it's my first time, GM I can tell you very clearly that there's no need. Chapter 1395. Equality. Yi Yu stared at the side of his face in a daze. The wind from the window was rather strong. Li Jinnan's eyes were squinted by the wind. He turned his head to look at Yi Yu. His red lips parted slightly as he continued. Now that things have already happened, I think Miss Yi is very suitable. Very suitable? Does that mean they are very compatible in bed? She laughed and said, GM I've been married before. That's already unfair to you. Furthermore, I don't think we're suitable for each other. Your status is too high, and your net worth is too high. I can't match up to you. Besides, it's not up to me to decide whether or not we get a divorce. Wasn't it up to her to decide whether to divorce or not? Li Jinnan raised his eyebrows slightly, but in his heart, he felt that it was only natural. After all, wouldn't a marriage of convenience be formed only after reaching an agreement of benefits? He looked at her and asked, are you saying that as long as Shen Luoan agrees to the divorce you'll be with me? When Yi Yu heard that, she looked at him as if he was a lunatic. He had originally thought that this fellow was quite normal and decent. Why was his way of thinking so deviant? He was as difficult to communicate with as Shen Luoan. She didn't want to pay any more attention to the man. She reached out to open the car door and said, thank you for bringing me here. I can go back on my own. As she spoke, she had no intention of stopping. Yi Yu quickly got out of the car, slammed the door shut, and turned to leave. Li Jinnan turned his head to look. The wind outside was very strong. Yi Yu's dress clung tightly to her body, making her look especially thin and frail. Just now she had tacitly agreed, right? Li Jinnan put out the cigarette and looked at himself in the rearview mirror. He raised his eyebrows slightly. Yi Yu was a good woman. Since Shen Luo and couldn't give her happiness, he would. Yi Yu hailed a taxi. When she got in, Li Jinnan's rebellious words kept replaying in her mind. There were millions of good girls in the world, but he actually persuaded a married man to divorce and be with him? The more Yi Yu thought about it, the more she felt that he was toying with her. How could a normal 29-year-old man not have had a girlfriend? Furthermore, how could a normal 29-year-old man not have had a girlfriend? Secondly, Li Jinnan was so good that all the women in Kingstown would flock to him with a single word from him. Why did he have to hang himself on a tree like her? Moreover, in Shen Luoan's words, she had been married before and divorced before remarrying. In the eyes of others, Li Jinnan was like picking up used shoes. How could the Li's family allow their descendants to pick up used shoes? Yi Yu had figured it all out. She felt even more stifled. She cursed in a low voice. You're crazy. The taxi driver glanced at the rearview mirror with a strange expression. Yi Yu ignored him and drove straight to their destination. Yi Yu opened the car door and made her way back home. Just as she reached the entrance of the estate, she saw a familiar figure walking in the garden in front of the estate. The man raised his head. It was obvious that he had seen Yi Yu. His hands were in his pockets. His eyes were sinister as he looked at Yi Yu with a faint smile. When Yi Yu saw the man, her heart skipped a beat. She stopped in her tracks. Chapter 1396. Shen Luoan's voice was very slow. His eyes were fixed on Yi Yu. His footsteps were neither fast nor slow, but every step he took seemed to trample on Yi Yu's heart. Yi Yu looked at Shen Luoan, and her heart beat faster and faster. The man in front of her had dark circles under his eyes, but it was obvious that he had freshened up and changed his clothes. He didn't look like he had been imprisoned. However, he still looked tired. His complexion didn't look good. It was obvious that he hadn't had a good time the past 2 days. Shen Luo and saw Yi Yu's expression and smiled. Come back to the capital with me, Yi Yu. You haven't seen Yi in a long time, have you? Guan Kui. That name had existed between Yi Yu and Shen Luoan for 7 years. For 7 years, that name had been a barrier between them. Even though she knew that there was such a person between them, Yi Yu still married him without hesitation after he proposed. She had thought that as time went on, dripping water would wear away a rock. Who knew? Yi Yu suddenly felt ridiculous. She wanted to laugh, but her heart ached. Shen Luoan walked closer and said, "Let's go back to see her. I think she must miss you very much." Shen Luoan's expression was very normal. He looked at her and slowly said, "Also, Mom and Dad have been talking about you lately. You don't want to go back during the holidays. You're the daughter-in-law of the Shen family after all. Even if your heart isn't here, you should still show the proper etiquette." If it was Kei, he wouldn't have been so rude. "Is that so?" Yi Yu looked up at Shen Luoan without backing away. "I heard that Guan Kui's condition has improved a lot recently. Didn't you go to see her? My mom asked me for something of yours last time. Didn't they contact you?" Shen Luoan really didn't know about that. He frowned and asked, "Kei is better? What does she want from me?" Yi Yu carefully looked at Shen Luoan's expression and smiled. "She wants your essence of the night." Shen Luoan was stunned. He looked at Yi Yu, and his face darkened. Nonsense! How could Kei want something like that? Guan Kui's personality was very pure. Because of her family, she might have been a little arrogant, but she was also very kind. If one were to describe Yi Yu as a beautiful lily, whose fragrance wafted from miles away, then Guan Kui would be the sweet and lovely daughter of a humble family. She was a jasmine that people couldn't help but love. She exuded an elegant and enchanting temperament from head to toe. She was so clean that she was above the common people. However, such a girl had been ruined by a wild lily in the past. Shen Luoan looked at Yi Yu's face and became more and more impatient with her. He sneered and said, "She's already been forced into this state by you. At this point, you still want to defame her? Yi Yu, you're getting more and more despicable." Every word that came out of Shen Luoan's mouth was like a venomous dart. Not a single one missed, and every one of his moves was deadly. It was always like that. Guan Kui was beautiful, but she was evil. Her family, her lover, and no one believed her. Yi Yu looked at Shen Luoan and chuckled. She averted her eyes and said, "It's up to you whether you believe me or not. I've already conveyed my message. Since Guan Kui has regained consciousness, she probably needs you the most. It's a pity that I've been busy with work lately, so I won't be going back with you to see her. You can go by yourself." Chapter 1397. You're feeling guilty, aren't you? Shen Luoan was already standing in front of Yi Yu. The distance between them was only a step. "Are you afraid that you'll feel guilty when you see her?" Shen Luoan's eyes were burning. He looked at Yi Yu with a hint of anticipation. When he realized what he was feeling, Shen Luoan was stunned. What was I anticipating? Hoping that this woman would repent? Hoping that this woman would feel guilty? Shen Luoan laughed at the thought. It wasn't clear whether he was saying it for Yi Yu or himself. Shen Luoan muttered, "How is that possible? If I felt guilty, you would have felt guilty a long time ago." Yi Yu's gaze was calm as she replied, "I've said it before. It wasn't me. I won't admit to anything that wasn't done by me. I said the same thing back then, and I still say the same thing now." The anticipation in Shen Luoan's heart completely dissipated. His gaze returned to coldness. With both hands in his pockets, he asked, "Aren't you going to invite me to your house?" "I'm sorry. I'm not interested." Yi Yu walked around him and prepared to leave. Before she could take a step forward, he grabbed her arm. Shen Luoan stared at her. His gaze was malicious, and his grip was strong. He said, "But I'm very interested. We've been married for more than half a year, and we haven't slept together. You're still a virgin, aren't you? I'd like to verify it myself." When Yi Yu heard that, her breathing quickened. An indescribable emotion suddenly expanded in her heart and exploded. She waved her hand violently in an attempt to shove his hand away, but all she got was a heart-wrenching pain. "What? You don't dare?" The suspicion that Shen Luoan had been harboring for a long time was confirmed. "Yi Yu, did you cheat on me?" It sounded like a question, but there was no doubt in his tone. Yi Yu's heart skipped a beat. Her face turned red. She gritted her teeth and yelled, "What are you doing? Let go of me." Shen Luoan's masseter muscles tightened. and he tightened his grip on her hand. Yi Yu screamed and yelled, "Help! Let go of me!" The commotion between Yi Yu and Shen Luo and was very eye-catching at the entrance of the neighborhood. At that moment, Yi Yu's screams attracted the attention of many of the residents. The two burly men who lived in the neighborhood had just parked their car. When they heard Yi Yu shout, they immediately looked over. At first glance, they recognized that the girl was their neighbor. The two of them rushed over and shouted, "What are you doing? Let go." Shen Luoyan's heart sank. He loosened his grip and said, "I'm her husband." "No." She thanked the two burly men and ran toward the lobby of the neighborhood. "You're right," Yi Yu said quickly after her hand was released from her grip. The two men didn't know Shen Luo and had never seen him before. When they saw that Yi Yu didn't have a strong reaction, they didn't meddle. However, Shen Luoyan didn't know which block, which floor, and which room Yi Yu lived in. Now that she had run away, he couldn't find her again. Shen Luoyan was so angry that he gritted his teeth. But soon, he calmed down and breathed a sigh of relief. He muttered, "Shen Luoyan, calm down. Wait a minute. Shen Jilia seems to be very familiar with that woman's sister. Furthermore, he was a frequent visitor to Kingstown. He should know which building and which room Yi Yu was staying in." Shen Luoyan thought for a moment and picked up his phone to call Shen Jilia. Chapter 1398. Shen Jilia was still in the hospital. He had just packed his things and was about to leave when he received a call from Shen Luoyan. Luoyan had just picked up his car keys when he saw Shen Jilia pick up the phone. He whistled and asked, "A date with a pretty lady?" "It's my brother." Shen Jilia picked up the phone and picked up his backpack. "Hello. Are you close to Yi Qianqian?" Shen Jilia was surprised to hear Yi Qianqian's name from Shen Luoyan's mouth. As he walked, he asked, "What's wrong? How do you know Yi Qianqian?" "I need to talk to her about something." "Do you know where she lives?" "Give me the address." Shen Jilia felt a little strange. Shen Luo and has something to talk to Yi Qianqian about? Why does it sound so mysterious? Yi Qianqian hates Shen Luoyan. Is he going to cause trouble for Yi Qianqian? Shen Jilia was silent for a moment before saying, "I have a good relationship with Qianqian, but she's always moving. I don't know where she lives now. She used to live in Jinlonggang. Do you want to go there and take a look?" "Building 305. Go take a look." "Jinlonggang?" Shen Luo and looked up at the entrance of the neighborhood. The words Wangjiang No. 1 came into view. "Isn't Yi Qianqian living with Yi Yu?" Shen Luoyan frowned and nodded his head. "All right. Thanks. Brother, why are you looking for her?" "It's nothing. Go on with your work." "All right. Our hospital recently received a special patient. Do you know who it is?" Shen Jilia walked out with Luoyan. They were already at the elevator. "I wanted to call you to tell you, but I forgot." When Shen Luoyan heard that, he could vaguely guess what was going on. He asked, "Who is it?" "Guan Kuei." Shen Jilia entered the elevator. The signal was a little bad. Shen Luoyan heard a distorted voice coming from the other side of the phone. It wasn't clear. He could only hear the word Guan, but he calmed down and shouted, "Who? Say that again." Shen Jilia secretly clicked his tongue. Why is she so agitated? "Guan Kuei. She's the good friend that you and sister-in-law grew up together. She's sister-in-law's older sister, Guan Kuei." "Guan Kuei. It's really her. Is she in your hospital now?" Shen Luoyan's heart ached. The hospital where Shen Luoyan worked was a psychiatric hospital. "Yes, she's not in good spirits, but she can recognize people. The last time I went to see her, she recognized me and asked about you. I told her that you married my sister-in-law. You told her?" Shen Luoyan's voice was a little solemn. Shen Jilia's voice suddenly rang out, and he paused for a moment. "I did," Shen Luoyan asked. "How did she react?" Shen Jilia didn't know what to say. He said, "She looked happy, but at the same time, she didn't look too happy. After that, she was pushed away, and I haven't seen her since. I only saw her once." Shen Luoyan was silent for a moment. He glanced at Yi Yu's neighborhood and said, "Help me make an appointment. I'll go visit her tomorrow." "Ah, aren't you in Kingstown? Will you be back tomorrow?" Yes. Oh. Shinjilia stopped in his tracks. I'll make an appointment then. What time will you be arriving tomorrow? 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Are you alone? Shinjilia had no choice but to turn back. Chapter 1399. Yi looked down from the curtains. When she saw Shin Luoan's silhouette, the calm lake in her heart began to ripple. What is he doing? Yi Qianqian's voice suddenly rang out, startling Yi. Yi turned her head and said, You scared me to death. Yi Qianqian didn't think much of it. She giggled and asked, What's wrong with you? What are you looking at? Yi Qianqian looked down. When she saw Shin Luoan, she got angry. What's that guy doing here again? Harassing you? No, he's just here to see me, Yi said. Pfft. I don't believe you. He didn't even come to see you when you were hospitalized. What nonsense are you talking to me about now? Yi Qianqian rolled her eyes at her. Hey, just leave him be. Yi looked down at Shin Luo, and with her brows furrowed. Shin Luo, and is indeed different from before. Is it really as Li Jinan said? Is there something wrong with his mind? That shouldn't be the case, Shin Luo, and is such a capable and intelligent person. He should be able to adjust himself. With that thought, Yi relaxed and changed the topic. What are we eating tonight? At the capital's leading psychiatric hospital. In VIP room 1, the afterglow of dusk shrouded the room in darkness. A young girl was curled up in the corner, staring at a painting hanging on the wall in front of her. Her eyes were empty, and she was in a daze. There was a sudden knock on the door. A middle-aged man walked in. When he saw the young girl in the room, his eyes were filled with pity. He walked to the wheelchair and squatted down. Are you hungry? He asked softly. The girl's eyes slowly began to glow. She turned her head and gently shook her head. Daddy brought you your favorite cake. Do you want to eat some? The girl shook her head again. Her face was expressionless. She turned her head and continued to stare at the painting. Have some. After you finish one, Daddy has some good news for you. Guan Yanhong coaxed his daughter and said, Come and have some. Guan Kui turned her head to look at her father and gently shook her head. I'm not hungry. Her voice was hoarse. It sounded like the friction between two pieces of wood. It was unpleasant to the ears. But when Guan Yanhong heard it, it was as if he had heard the sound of nature. No matter what, you have to eat some. Do you want to see Shin Luoan? Luoan. Those two words, which she hadn't heard in a long time, brought a spark to Guan Kui's eyes. She asked, Did you tell him that I've recovered? Guan Yanhong shook his head. No, but he must have heard about it recently. He made an appointment to visit you tomorrow. Why don't you eat something first? Make him fat so that he'll like you tomorrow. There was finally some color in Guan Kui's eyes. She looked down at the cake in Guan Yanhong's hands and asked, Dad, is Shin Luoan married? Guan Yanhong's smile froze as he looked at Guan Kui. Guan Kui's gaze was unexpectedly calm. Guan Yanhong looked at her for a long time before asking, How did you know? With Yi, right? Guan Yanhong hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. Guan Kui lowered her head. Her lips curled into a smile. Very quickly, she burst out laughing. 7 years of nightmares, 7 years of tragedy, 7 years of hesitation, and 7 years of confusion. In those 7 years, Guan Kui hadn't thought about it for a single day. If she hadn't fallen off the cliff back then, would everything have been different? Chapter 1400. The best years of a woman's life had been wasted in vain. Her former lover had become the husband of another woman. Guan Kui's smile widened and she said, Just you wait. I'll make them pay for what they owe me. Guan Yanhong's heart ached as he looked at his daughter. All he could do was smile and bring the cake to her mouth. It was the 3rd day since Ming returned to Kingstown. Lily stayed with the Shin family in the capital and saw Shin Manting every day. At first, she felt a little awkward, but after a few days together, she got used to it. Although she was used to being with the Shin family, she wasn't used to living alone in the capital. Lily lay on the bed with her phone in her hand and sent Ming an emoji. Yuli. Hubby squinting smile. Yuli. Moi, Yuli. Rose Ming. Yuli. Squinting smile. What are you doing? Ming. No one is doing it when you're not here, Yuli. Yuli, how can you be so perverted? Oh Ming. No one is perverted when you're not here, Yuli. Then I'll sneak back to Kingstown, okay? What are you doing? Oh Ming. Okay. I'm working. The photo was of a computer desktop with a large stack of documents. It looked like it was densely packed with words and a lot of data that Yulili couldn't understand. Yulili didn't even look at it and replied, "It's past 9 o'clock, and you're still working. Oh Ming. You're not here, so I can only work." Yulili smiled and rolled on the bed with her cell phone in her arms. A silly laugh came out of her mouth. All of a sudden, Yulili stood up and clicked on a video call with Ming. Ming picked up quickly. In the background was the wedding photo behind his chair in his office. It seemed like he was still in the office. Yulili lay on the bed and said, "Why aren't you going home? Men who sleep too much will have kidney problems." Ming smiled and said, "Don't worry. Even if I have kidney problems, I can still serve you." Yulili said, "You're always talking dirty. I miss you." Ming suddenly changed the topic. He pursed his lips and looked a little aggrieved. "Hey, why don't I go to the capital tomorrow to look for you? This kind of life is too hard." "Ah, I want to, but Grandma and Dad both said that we can't meet." "Aren't we meeting now?" Ming chuckled. "You don't have to listen to those old antiques. It's not the same," Yulili said. "Not seeing each other is probably to increase the mystery. We're already so familiar with each other, so there shouldn't be any mystery left." Yulili turned over in bed and said, "Hey, let me tell you." Yulili turned on her gossipy mode and told him all the gossip she had heard about square dancing and the Shin family's gossips. Ming nodded from time to time and listened with great interest. The two of them chatted until late at night before hanging up reluctantly. Looking at the time, it was already past 11 o'clock. Yulili's mouth was a little dry. She got up and put on her shoes to go to the kitchen to get some water. When she passed by the room next door, she heard a stifled cry. Yulili stopped in her tracks and turned her head to look. The white door was ajar, and the sound of sobbing could be heard intermittently. It wasn't loud, but it piqued Yulili's curiosity. Yulili quietly walked over and leaned against the wall, trying to eavesdrop through the crack of the door. However, the sound of sobbing was like an illusion. It was no longer there. Chapter 1401. Yulili reached out and gently knocked on the door. It was very quiet inside. It was as if the sound Yulili had just heard was really an illusion. Yulili stood there for a while. When no one answered, she turned around and prepared to leave. Suddenly, there was a soft sound behind her. She turned around and saw that the door had been opened. It was dark inside. Shin Manting was barefoot and wearing a thin nightgown. Her eyes were a little red, and she looked like she had just woken up. Seeing that it was Yulili, Shin Manting paused and asked, "What's the matter?" Yulili stood at the door and felt a little awkward when she heard that. She shook her head and said, "Nothing. I just heard some sounds and felt that you didn't seem very happy, so I came to take a look." Shin Manting stood at the door and looked at Yulili. After a while she said, "Thank you." Yulili was stunned and a little embarrassed. "Ah, it's nothing. I'll leave first. Do you want to come in for a chat?" Shin Manting's voice wasn't loud, and it was a little soft. She could hear that she wasn't in a good mood. All along, Yulili didn't like Shin Manting. In fact, she was a little disgusted with her. But after a few days together, Yulili realized that Shin Manting didn't seem to have any friends. Every day, Yulili would go back and forth between the company and home. Yulili had accompanied old Mrs. Shun and heard a lot about Shin Manting. This girl is very lonely. Yulili thought about it and nodded. Shin Manting's room was smaller than old Mrs. Shun's, but it was bigger than the guest room that Yulili was staying in. What made Yulili feel a little strange was that in addition to Shin Manting's things, there was also a man's things in the room. The man's tie was on the bedside table. It was particularly conspicuous in this woman's room. "Is it Shin Luoan?" Yulili maintained her composure as she walked in. With a smile she remarked, "Your room is so big." Shin Manting smiled and sat on the bed. She asked, "When is your wedding?" "The 8th of next month," Yulili said. It was supposed to be last month, but Ming's mother said that day wasn't very good. The 8th of next month is the best day of the year. I see. Happy wedding. Shin Manting smiled. Do you know that I envy you so much? Oming is really good to you. This Lily suddenly regretted coming in. It was awkward to sit in the same room with her man's ex-fiancé and talk about this kind of thing. Haha. Lily laughed dryly. It's all right. He's always been like this. The smile on Shin Manting's face was a little dry and didn't reach her eyes. She asked, do you need a bridesmaid at your wedding? I'll be your bridesmaid in Kingstown, okay? Lily was even more shocked. She looked at Shin Manting in astonishment and asked, you want to be my bridesmaid? Can I? Since I can't be Oming's bride, I'll be your bridesmaid. When you return to Kingstown, take me with you, okay? Shin Manting looked at Lily with a pleading look in her eyes. Lily felt a little strange. Why would Shin Manting make such a request out of nowhere? I don't have many friends, and I've never been a bridesmaid before. If you don't agree, I may never be one in this life, Shin Manting said with a smile. I can't even be a bride, and I can't even be a bridesmaid. Chapter 1402. Lily had always sympathized with Shin Manting. When she heard that, her heart was filled with compassion. After thinking about it, she agreed. After that, Lily and Shin Manting didn't have much to talk about. After exchanging a few words, Lily left Shin Manting's room. Finally, she went to the kitchen to drink some water before returning to her room. However, the more she thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. Why would Shin Manting want to be his bridesmaid out of nowhere? Is she plotting something? Lily rolled over and got up. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. She couldn't be blamed for thinking that way. Shin Manting really had too many things that worried her. Is she trying to seduce Oming? The more she thought about it, the more certain she was. Lily picked up her phone and sent a text message to Oming. It was the weekend, so Yi didn't go out. She slept until 10 o'clock. When she woke up, the sun was already shining brightly. After washing up and eating breakfast, Yi changed into her sportswear and put on her headphones to go to the gym. When she was out of the neighborhood, Yi looked around. Shin Luo and didn't know her new phone number, and she had blocked his communication app. He didn't even know which building she lived in. Is he waiting for me here? After looking around, she realized that there was no one. Yi breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time, she felt an inexplicable sense of loss. In the end, he still left. After the gym, Yi received a message from Shen Julia. Sister-in-law, are you here yet? It's almost time. Yi saw the strange WeChat message and was confused. She replied. Immediately after, Shen Julia called. Have you arrived? Didn't you say you were coming to the hospital today? Shen Julia's voice was filled with doubt. Her mood is not very stable. She might not be able to see guests later. What? Brother-in-law, did you get the wrong person? Hearing that, Shen Julia was even more confused. Didn't you go back to the capital with my brother? You said you would visit Guankui at 2 in the afternoon. You're not coming? Yi was silent for a moment and said, I don't know. Is Guankui in your hospital? Yeah. Didn't my brother tell you? That's weird. No. Yi suddenly thought of the day before. Did he come looking for me just to talk about that? She asked about Guankui's recent situation. When she heard that Guankui was doing well, she finally agreed and hung up the phone. Guankui is awake. She had finally regained consciousness after 7 years. It was time to prove her innocence. What happened back then was the thorn in their side. If Guankui could explain things clearly, wouldn't things be fine between them? She was still Yi Yu, and he was still her brother Luoan. Everything was like before. She picked up her phone and booked the earliest flight to the capital. In the small park, the grass sprouted gently, and the branches were just green. The weather was also getting warmer day by day. Yi Tian pushed her wheelchair as she sat in the park. Every now and then, she would see a bird flying by. She would chuckle and point in that direction as she said, Look, Kei. Another bird is flying by. Chapter 1403. Yes, but he hasn't arrived yet. Yi Tian looked at her watch and asked, Do you know who's coming today? Luoan. Guan Kui was filled with anticipation, but her eyes quickly became unreadable. And Yu. Yi Tian nodded her head and looked into the distance. With a look of surprise she said, Look, Luoan is here. When Guan Kui heard that, her eyes lit up. She raised her head and looked in the direction that Yi Tian had pointed. The sun was shining brightly that day. A tall figure walked up. His eyes were the same as they had been in the past, but his facial features were more defined. Shen Luoan was dressed in a casual suit. It was Guan Kui's favorite off-white color. He stepped forward in his clean and shiny leather shoes. With one look, it was obvious that he had put in a lot of effort into his appearance. When Yi Tian saw Shen Luoan in this state, she felt relieved. It seemed that although Shen Luoan was married to her, he hadn't forgotten about Kui at all. Yi Tian stood up and gently pushed the wheelchair forward. Mom. Shen Luoan greeted Yi Tian with a gentle smile. When Guan Kui heard that greeting, she didn't feel very comfortable. Shen Luoan was holding supplements and beautiful flowers in his hands. He handed the flowers to Guan Kui with a gentle smile and said, Long time no see, Kui. Guan Kui looked at Shen Luoan. Her smile widened as she accepted the flowers. Luoan, I've missed you so much. As she spoke, her emotions flowed naturally. Her eyes were filled with longing. I've been thinking about you, Luoan. Me too. Shen Luoan looked at Guan Kui with the same expression as before. He quickly handed the supplements to Yi Tian and said, Mom, I'll take a walk with Kui. Yi Tian nodded her head and quickly left. Shen Luoan looked at her legs. His heart ached as he asked, Are you still not healed? Guan Kui shook her head. The smile on her face was bitter. It's good that they're crippled. It's better than having my legs healed and not being able to dance in the future. Nonsense. You'll get better. Shen Luoan gently placed his hand on her shoulder. I thought you wouldn't wake up. It's great to see that you're awake. Luoan, I woke up a long time ago. It's just that I didn't want to see anyone. Guan Kui said gravely. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. I'm afraid I'll act up and beat you up. Wouldn't that be a grave sin for me? With that, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. By the time she reached the capital, it was already past 7 p.m. She asked for Shen Jilia's address and instructed him not to tell anyone about it. Then, she hailed a cab from the airport to the hospital where Guan Kui was staying. However, Guan Kui wasn't in the room. Just as she was about to ask the front desk, she heard a familiar male voice. Shen Luoan's voice sounded very cheerful. He was slowly approaching them as he spoke. She turned her head, and Shen Luoan looked over at the same time. Their eyes met, and they were speechless. The air was inexplicably quiet. Yi Yu had specially dressed up that day. She was wearing the season's latest dress and a pair of pretty and luxurious sandals. She looked very dignified. When Guan Kui saw Yi Yu, her hands gripped the sides of the wheelchair tightly. She glared at Yi Yu. Her breathing was heavy, and her eyes reddened. She gritted her teeth and growled, Yi Yu. Chapter 1404. Yi Yu stood where she was and called out, Sister. Ah! Guan Kui's eyes were bloodshot as she screamed. She stretched out her arms, and her entire body fell forward. She fell from the wheelchair onto the ground. This scene gave everyone a fright. Shen Luoan jumped and instinctively went over to help Guan Kui up. Yi Yu ran over as well. Before she could get close, she heard Guan Kui's cries. Yi Yu! Yi Yu! Yi Yu! Why did you do this to me? Why? Yi Yu stopped in her tracks. She looked at Guan Kui in a daze. She found it hard to believe. When Shen Luoan heard Guan Kui's cries, his expression turned to one of annoyance. He yelled, Get lost! Yi Yu stood rooted to the ground as she watched Guan Kui being carried by Shen Luoan. Her heart ached. Guan Kui buried herself in Shen Luoan's arms and wailed. Her hands clutched his shirt. As she cried, she said, I know you like Shen Luoan, but why did you ruin my life? My life could have been as beautiful as yours. Why? Shen Luoan's grip on Guan Kui tightened. In a low voice he comforted her. It's okay. Don't be afraid. It's all in the past. Don't cry. Be a good girl. Guan Kui cried even harder. She clutched his shirt tightly and said, Luoan. Shen Luoan's heart ached even more. The hatred in his eyes grew as he looked at Yu Yu. In an angry voice he yelled, "Get lost!" Yu Yu carried Guan Kui back into the ward. She stood there in a daze. She helped push the wheelchair into the room. When she entered, she saw Shen Luo, and gently covering Guan Kui with a blanket. This kind of gaze, this kind of gentle action, had also appeared in front of her not so long ago. However, after that incident, there had been no more. Shen Luoan. Guan Kui's crying gradually stopped. She squinted her eyes as if she didn't know Yu Yu had entered. Has Yu Yu left? Shen Luoan turned his head and looked at Yu Yu. His eyes darkened. He turned his head back and replied, "She's left." Guan Kui seemed to feel even more aggrieved. She sobbed softly and said, I'm sorry. I still can't forgive her. Luoan, I'm your good friend, right? You won't leave me, will you? Shen Luoan's heart ached even more. He sat on the edge of the bed and said softly, Don't talk nonsense. Go to sleep if you're tired. I'll stay here with you. Guan Kui sobbed. She closed her eyes and said, Actually, I can understand why Yu pushed me off the cliff all those years ago. At that time, Buzz. Yu's mind was clouded. An indescribable rage spread from her tailbone to her entire body. Almost instinctively she yelled, Bullsh*T. Guan Kui looked as if she had been given a fright. Her body trembled violently. She opened her eyes and looked in Yu's direction. In a daze she said, Yu. Guan Kui. Yu walked forward and glared at Guan Kui. She was furious. You were the one who fell that night. Why are you framing me? No wonder everyone blamed me all these years. Even Shen Luoan didn't trust me. So, Guan Kui said it herself. Chapter 1405. How could that be? Hasn't Guan Kui been in a coma ever since that night? After she fainted, Guan Kui had been in a half-asleep state. She hadn't been in a good state. When she found out that her legs had been paralyzed, she had lost her mind and been sent to a mental hospital. It had been 7 years. For the past 7 years, everyone had blamed her, resented her, and hated her. They had said that Yu had been jealous of Guan Kui and had pushed her off the cliff. Yu had been unable to defend herself. She had been waiting and enduring. She had been waiting for Guan Kui to wake up and prove her innocence. She had wanted Guan Kui to explain herself, that it had been a stormy night, and she had accidentally stepped on nothing and fallen off the cliff. Who would have thought that such a public opinion and such words would come from Guan Kui's own mouth? Yu couldn't believe it. The anger and complicated feelings in her heart instantly filled her. The 7 years of suffering and the 7 years of enduring had all been wishful thinking on her part. In their hearts they no longer believed her. No one believed her. Yu looked at Shen Luoan. Her eyes burned and her vision blurred. Brother Luoan, it wasn't me. It really wasn't me. She fell off on her own. When Guan Kui heard Yu's words, she hugged Shen Luoan's arm and curled up into a ball. She cried even harder. Her sobs were intermittent, and she sobbed with great difficulty. She was like a frightened pet. Her eyes looked at Yu with fear. Luoan. Guan Kui hugged Shen Luoan. Her body trembled violently. Luoan, save me. She wants to kill me. Hurry up and chase her away. Hurry. Shen Luoan hugged Guan Kui, his childhood sweetheart who had finally regained consciousness. The anger in his chest was about to burst out. He turned his head and roared, Get lost. What are you still doing here? Yu was stunned by his roar, but she didn't move. The tears in her eyes gathered even more. She looked at Shen Luo, and then raised her hand to wipe her tears. Biting her lower lip she yelled, Guan Kui, do you dare to touch your own conscience and say it? Did I push you off that year? In front of Brother Luoan, touch your conscience and swear. What happened that year? Tell me. Guan Kui hugged Shen Luoan. Her body trembled even more violently, and she cried even louder. Why are you doing this to me? I'm already a cripple. Yu, aren't we sisters? You said that we were going to be good sisters for life. Why are you forcing me like this? Shen Luo, and was even more furious. He picked up an apple from the fruit plate at the head of the bed, and threw it at Yu. He roared, Get lost. The huge apple smashed into Yu's chest. For a moment, the impact numbed her entire body. Thud. The apple fell to the ground, bounced a few times, and rolled back to Shen Luoan's feet. The part of Yi Yu's chest that had been smashed felt as if it had been rotted. The pain spread through her internal organs and every nerve in her body. There was no leeway. When Shen Luoan heard the muffled sound, he seemed to come back to his senses. There was a look of astonishment in his eyes as he looked down at the apple on the ground. Chapter 1406. That smile completely shattered any hope Yi Yu had of getting lucky. Guan Kui. She didn't misunderstand. She did it on purpose. She framed me on purpose to make everyone hate me, didn't she? The corner that she had been holding on to all this time seemed to crumble. She had thought that as long as Guan Kui woke up, the world would clear her name. Who would have thought that Guan Kui's awakening would not bring her dawn? Instead, it would bring her endless darkness? This kind of darkness, layer by layer, covered her closest family, covered her true love, and now, even her future was a blur. She looked at Shen Luo and Guan Kui hugging each other in front of her. Their deep feelings for each other made her appear even more like a joke. Yi Yu's vision was blurry, but her rationality prevented her from crying in front of them. She forced herself to remain calm and laughed coldly as she looked at them. Her gaze was filled with sorrow and seemed to be watery, but it was also filled with an indescribable pity. She seemed to sympathize with Guan Kui and Shen Luoan, or perhaps both. When Shen Luoan saw the look in her eyes, he felt an inexplicable ache in his heart. For some strange reason, Shen Luoan felt guilty. He opened his mouth and said, "Yu. The corners of Yi Yu's lips curled up in a smile. The sarcasm was clear in her words. Without waiting for Shen Luoan to finish his sentence, she had already turned around and walked out of the ward with her head held high. Yi Yu's back view was frail and stubborn. It was as clean as when she had carried her luggage and separated from the Guan family. There was no reluctance. Shen Luoan panicked. He instinctively let go of Guan Kui and stood up. Just as he was about to walk away, Shen Luoan stopped. Ah! A scream came from behind him. Guan Kui hugged her head. Her hair was disheveled and her face was pale. Her expression was one of despair. Luoan. Shen Luoan stopped in his tracks. He froze on the spot, unsure of where to go. Guan Kui dragged her body over with both hands. She reached out for Shen Luoan. Her face was covered in tears. "Don't go. Please don't leave me." Shen Luoan was in so much pain that he was trembling. The screams in his ears intensified the intensity of the pain. Even he didn't know if he was hurting for Yi Yu or Guan Kui. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down. He felt his throat go dry. He turned around and supported Guan Kui. In a gentle voice he said, "It's all right. I'm not leaving." It was as if Guan Kui had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. She grabbed onto Shen Luoan's hands and buried her head into his embrace. Her tears turned into a smile. Guan Kui, who was crying tears of joy, didn't miss out on the man beside her. As he held her up, his gaze lingered on the door. Her hands gripped him even tighter. Guan Kui didn't want to let go at all. Her breathing was heavy, and the hatred in her eyes deepened. Yi Yu didn't know how long she had been walking. The view in front of her was getting wider and wider, but her vision was getting blurry. After entering the hospital elevator, Yi Yu couldn't hold it in any longer. She covered her mouth and sobbed softly. Chapter 1407. She lowered her head and walked forward. The darkness around her seemed to once again obscure her vision, and she lost her sense of direction. The passing cars, the walking townsfolk, and the warm yellow street lights shone down. But the atmosphere in the sky was overshadowed by the liveliness, making the surroundings even more gloomy. The gloomy atmosphere made Yi Yu's heart tremble with pain. All the nerves in her body began to convulse uncontrollably. Her head spun, and she couldn't take it anymore. She squatted down and burst into tears. The passers-by noticed Yi Yu, but they only took a few glances. No one went forward to comfort her. Rumble! Lightning flashed across the gloomy dark clouds. The muffled sound of thunder warned the passers-by to take shelter. After the thunderous roar, bean-sized raindrops fell impatiently, hitting people's hair and faces, making them feel cold and numb. Clatter. The rain grew heavier. Yi squatted on the ground. Her strength seemed to have been drained. Her choked sobs were almost inaudible in the noisy rain. The people who took shelter from the rain ran quickly. Their footsteps splashed water, and the water was covered up again. Children without umbrellas had to run hard, because they had to hurry home, so that they wouldn't be caught in the rain. What about children without homes? Yi laughed at herself, and hugged herself even tighter. Suddenly, the sound of the rain seemed to have softened. The cold rain that had been falling continuously was also stopped. Yi was stunned. She raised her head, and opened her wet and hazy eyes. The first thing she saw was a sharp, clear and cold face. The pair of eyes that were as calm as the wind, and the moon looked at Yi calmly. It was like an ancient spring, and no one could read his emotions. Yi looked at the man in front of her in a daze. She blinked and looked at him a few times, but his face was still the same. Is it cool? His voice was cold, and she couldn't tell whether he was happy or angry. She held the big black umbrella with her well-defined knuckles, completely protecting her body. Yi opened her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. She looked down at herself. She was drenched, and she seemed to be in a sorry state. Let's go. Li Jinnan couldn't help but pull her up. He stuffed the umbrella into her hands, and took off his suit jacket to drape it over her. A scorching warmth enveloped her. She felt a lump in her throat, and tears started to well up in her eyes again. Li Jinnan acted as if he hadn't seen it. He took the umbrella back, put one arm around her shoulder, and led her to his car. When she got into the car, Yi was still dripping with water. She shrunk her hands and feet cautiously. She was afraid that she would dirty herself further. Li Jinnan glanced at her, took out a handkerchief from his pocket, and threw it to her. Then he drove steadily. After getting into the car, Li Jinnan didn't say a word. Yi took the handkerchief and gently wiped her face and hair. She turned her head and stole a glance at Li Jinnan. Li Jinnan's side profile was chiseled, and the lines of his jaw were tight. His lips were pursed tightly, and he looked a little unhappy. Yi shrunk her feet, and lowered her head to look at the handkerchief in her hand. In a low voice she said, "Thank you, Jiemli." After she opened her mouth, Yi realized that her voice was a little hoarse. It was choked with sobs, and she sounded even more pathetic. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.